Welcome to episode 130 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Teammates Tussle Battle of the Heroes edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Josef. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing great, Phil. We had another great weekend of racing between IndyCar and NASCAR, and there's definitely a lot of tussling between teammates in both series, and especially in Cup, it was definitely a battle of the heroes, like you said, between Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. But we got a lot to get into, of course, and glad to be back with you this week, and glad to be here to talk about it.
Absolutely, we got a lot to go over. The events at Watkins Glen Cup and Xfinity saw Young Money Kyle Larson get a double, and it was the same top two, only happened once before in the history of the top two NASCAR series, where the top two finishers in both races were the same. So this is only so that was a pretty big deal with Kyle Larson and AJ Allmendinger, both Saturday and Sunday. Of course, on Sunday, Kyle Larson used up William Clyde Elliott the second. If you are a Elliott fan or just somebody you can see, or you just have an idea of what racing is, he used up Clyde to win his second race of 2022 and in the process get himself to second in points, which could be big in regards to the amount of bonus points he can get, since right now William Clyde Elliott has won the regular season title, will get 15 more playoff points to add to his current 25-point total, so you will more than likely start with 40 points going into the playoffs. We'll talk about all that happened between Larson and Elliott. We'll also talk about Kimi Raikkonen, the 2007 Formula One world champion, making his Cup Series debut for Trackhouse's Project 91. Had a good run going, went away after stage 2, 7 international drivers, which was the most ever in a Cup race. So that's pretty big in history of Cup, I would say. One spot's left for 15 drivers, including those that are currently third and sixth in the overall points. So we will have a little bit of a discussion there, Josh and I, in regards to, is this really the best format? Are we really putting the best foot forward or the best drivers out there within this format?
No.
Yeah, and I don't believe we are either. Larson, of course, won on Saturday, but that was in part because Keebler, Gibbs, and William Byron, the two best cars in the racetrack on Saturday, got into each other in the inner loop. And Junior, I think I'll probably do my impersonation at least of him doing his call there. I could probably do that. I need to go back and watch that. That's what I should do from now on. I think after starting next week with Daytona, because Junior gets so fired up about Daytona, I'm going to try to reenact some of his calls here on the Grip Strip Podcast for those that love Junior. I have become a Junior fan since he's become retired Dale Jr. Justin Allgaier had a weird incident early in the race and lost a lot of points. Allmendinger's second place finish essentially has given him a full race lead in the regular season standings. So that could in turn, with the rest of this regular season, they still have a few more races to go, could possibly lead to him getting some key points. Those 15 playoff points, I think, amongst who he's around, would be the most valuable to AJ Allmendinger in that Xfinity battle. We mentioned the Penske guys at Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway. Josef Newgarden wins for the 5th time in 2022, the most wins he's had in one season in his career, and he's had a great career, of course, 2-time IndyCar Series champion, trying to go for the 3rd championship. Narrows the gap to his teammate Will Power, who tied Mario Andretti for the most poles in the history of IndyCar. The points battle, we'll talk about that. Scotty McLaughlin and Newgarden after the rain had a great battle there. And the person that got in between them at the end of the race was rookie David Malukas, the guy who Josh mentioned it on the socials, said I did pick him as a wild card. I did pick him as my rookie of the year choice at the start of the year. I think you picked Lundgaard. I believe you picked Lundgaard. I'm just remembering off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I
we'd have
might be
to go
wrong,
back on that, but yeah,
and
both of
I
them are
picked
pretty good
Malukas.
picks.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we both were hedging our bets, and I think, or I might have picked Kirkwood. It's one of either way. I think I said somewhere. I know I said Malukas. I feel like I said it on here. Why would I say
Yeah.
anywhere else?
I mean, you were
But
pretty high on Kirkwood at the beginning of the season. I remember that.
yeah, I was, and I forgot that he was driving for AJ Foyt. That's part of the problem. We'll get into the Indy cars, of course, and everything now that they only have 2 races to go in their season. The roundup will go over the NHRA at Brainerd. It was just Nitro this past weekend, leading into the U.S. Nationals here for Labor Day weekend here in a couple of weeks. MotoGP and Moto2 at Austria returning from their summer break. Pecco Bagnaia gets his third consecutive victory on the Ducati, but the amount of mistakes he made early in the year probably has rendered all those wins irrelevant to Fabio Quartararo. Supercars at Sandown, typical. Shane Van Gisbergen gets 2 out of 3 wins. The DJR team, who has gotten new investment partners recently, wins with Will Davison in one race. So we'll get into that in a little bit. F2 and F3 will tell you the point standings going into Spa. They'll be racing here in the next few weeks during the European swing. GTs, GT Pro and GT Am, or whatever, GTD, GT Daytona, or whatever the hell they call it. They'll be racing at VIR this weekend. Michelin GT Challenge, which will be their next to last race before Petit Le Mans here in about 5 weeks' time. We'll preview Spa for Formula One and their return after summer break, of course. We will do Cup and Xfinity at Daytona, preview, picks, and Josh will bring the algorithm back out of hibernation. It is a super speedway special. It has been known to pick winners. It did pick Tate Fogelman.
It's gotten
So
pretty wild.
it should be the Tate. We should just name it the Tate Fogelman algorithm presented by Josh, because that was literally one of the first picks, if not the first pick you ever made on with it, and it worked. So in honor of a guy that we've never interviewed, may never interview, we're just going to name it the Tate Fogelman algorithm. So we'll bring that out later on. A lot of talk about football since we're getting so close. A week left in the preseason. Week 2 just passed, and then fall brawl drafted. So my league, Josh has been in it, finished second and third, or third and second the last in his 2 years so far in this league, trying to get to the first position. We had our draft last night, had some spirited discussion, mostly led by me. But, it is what it is. Everybody participated in the draft, which was nice. I think that's probably the first time ever in all the years that I've run my league that I've had full participation in a draft. So, and having at times at least 6 out of 10 people in to be in the Zoom call was pretty good. So one of these days, maybe we'll do a live draft. That seems likely. I think we might have the right group of people to make that happen. Josh will talk about iRacing, sim game, Formula One, et cetera, that goes on within the sim segment, and then we'll close the deal. But I'd be remiss before we move forward and start talking about Cup and Xfinity at Watkins Glen. We've had support from Map 360 Collective, getting some tickets. We've talked about it here in recent weeks. Pocono, Watkins Glen. Josh is actually going to be able to go to Daytona here this weekend for the Coke Zero 400. And we have a little thing we have to talk about in regards to that for them, for NBC. So anything can happen in Daytona. Experience the thrills, the drama, and the acceleration on all on NBC. Somebody needs to really copy edit this stuff for them. The last chance to qualify for the playoffs continues on Saturday, August 27th, on NBC and Peacock TV, and NASCAR and NBC or NBC Sports. You can use all those Twitter handles, so NBC, Peacock TV, NASCAR on NBC, NBC Sports with the hashtag NASCAR. It'll be on, I think, regular NBC this weekend for the Coke Zero 400, and one last race before the playoffs, 7 p.m. Eastern this Saturday night for the Cup Series playoff or the regular season finale, what used to be the Firecracker 400. So we will probably reference that there a couple more times. So if you're offended by ads, well, sorry, we have to do it here. That's part of why we've gotten some free tickets. And Josh is actually going to be able to utilize them, so it's nice. But I think something that's really spicy to look at coming into Saturday between two guys that have the personality of a spoiled lemon, in William Clyde Elliott II, the now regular season champion, trying to win his second Cup championship, the 2020 Series champion, and his teammate, the 2021 Series champion, who won 10 races and dominated, in Kyle Larson. They were the dominant figures yesterday at Watkins Glen and the Go Bowling at the Glen. And it really was straightforward for them. They were going to, they led a lot of the race there. I mean, Chase led the most laps, of course, and there were a bunch of guys that led laps during the day. Logano, McDowell had a fast car. I mean, I don't like the guy. I never have liked the guy, but McDowell had a car to win that race yesterday, but I guess Strat didn't really work out so well for him, pit stops and all that. But the 5 and the 9 were up there all day. And at the end of the day, at the end, when it counted, last restart, Kyle Larson basically acted like Chase Elliott wasn't there and decided not to make the turn one, and it allowed him to go and win the race over AJ Allmendinger. Joey Logano, as I mentioned, he won stage 2, finished 3rd. Clyde finished 4th, got stage points in stage 2, led the most laps, as I mentioned. Daniel Suarez gets another top 5 on a road course for Trackhouse. McDowell, as I mentioned, finished 6th. Tyler Reddick 7th, trying to go for 3 consecutive road course wins. Falls a little short in that. Christopher Bell, coming from tailback, as the guy who gave the command to start engines would say, finished 8th. Christopher Busher finished 9th. And Eric Jones, that Jones boy from Byron, Michigan, finished 10th. So that's, I guess the first piece is Larson and Elliott, Josh. I've been talking for a little while here, so I'll let you go and give your 2 cents on that, because to me, the way that Elliott handled that post race interview, you knew in all his heart he wanted to basically MF the guy if he knows how to, or say make some sign that his kind would do. But the fact of the matter is, he basically bit his tongue because he's a Hendrick Motorsports driver. But that he feels aggrieved from this race. He feels aggrieved from ACS earlier in the year when Larson, of course, won that race too. And it's probably one of the things that NASCAR needs if they really want to have a compelling championship battle, is these two guys battling each other. Probably would be a good thing, honestly, because if they run each other over, then it gives somebody else an opportunity to go and win this thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this it brings a different chapter, different element into this playoff title fight here coming up after Daytona. And I think for Chase Elliott, I mean, go back to Atlanta, or not Atlanta, but Auto Club, and he was pretty pissed off on the radio. He even called him, the stupid motherfucker, god damn it, in reference to Kyle Larson back in February when Chase was on the outside of him going into turn one, and Larson went up to block him and put him in the wall there, and then Chase spun out later, and that ruined his race. And then you go to this one that just happened to Watkins Glen, and Kyle Larson went for it in the corner in turn one and locked up the right front and slid up into Chase Elliott and slid Chase Elliott back into fourth place. And Larson goes on to win, picks up second win of the year and sweeps the weekend. And meanwhile, Chase Elliott gets a meaningless participation trophy, aka the regular season title. So there's a lot of things that you have to consider, like going forward. How do they race each other in the playoffs? Of course, Chase Elliott was so angry, I guess, that he kept saying we're going to Bristol. And it's probably a missed opportunity if Napa doesn't send him to Bristol real quick during this week. I mean, he's got time. He's got the
I'm at
regular
the
season.
road trick.
Yep, exactly. The 2001 commercial from Michael Waltrip and Napa. They got to recreate it now with Chase Elliott. And they got time. He's got time now this week. Doesn't really need to prepare much for Daytona. He's locked up the regular season title, so he can go film that commercial real quick and put it on the screen during the race. And that's how you capitalize on this right there. But going forward in the playoffs, hey, let's go to Bristol. Let's skip 3 weeks to Bristol. I mean, let's say one of these guys is on the line for elimination. Does Chase Elliott pay back the favor and bump him out of the way to potentially get back into playoff contention, or let's say Kyle Larson is on the edge of being eliminated if that should that happen and they get into it again, or even later on in Phoenix, like you said, like they get into each other there, and that creates an opportunity for somebody else, say like a Ross Chastain or Kyle Busch or somebody like that. Yeah, Logano
or Hamlin if he
Denny Hamlin.
his way in there.
Exactly. So there's a lot of possibilities here with that. And we'll have to see how it plays out. But I'm sure Rick Hendrick probably not wanting this, and of course they had a talk after the race, and Chase Elliott put his company hat on and just said congratulations over and over again. And of course, you could see it on his face how pissed off he was and everything. And it's basically the nice version of Kyle Busch when Kyle Busch gave his "I'm just here so I won't get fined" reminiscent of Marshawn Lynch. Is basically the same thing, but filtered for Hendrick Motorsports. So yeah, this is gonna be interesting. But Kyle Larson gets the win finally. Kind of a drought this year. Probably should have won a lot of races this year. Coke 600 comes to mind there, but that now has a little bit of momentum with the weekend sweep going into Daytona, and then start off the playoffs at Darlington. So we'll see how everything plays out.
I actually picked Kyle Larson to win the Xfinity race. I did pretty good this week. It doesn't happen very often. It's not a 410 sprint car race, or else I really would pick him all the time. But I was picking him. I think by the end of last year, I think I picked him every week. I don't even remember anymore, but I figured I just got sick and tired of it.
Just throwing in Kyle Larson.
Yeah, it may have not been. I think, I would pick him for every race by the end of last year. I just got so fed up with it, and because of the media portrayal of how he's a victim. Since he's such a victim for being a moron from frickin' bumblefuck California, who, he's a victim, all right, fucking cocksucker. He's such a victim. He's second in points, and after this victory, all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know where that came from, honestly, because it's not exactly like Larson's been setting the world ablaze with his productivity this year in the Cup Series. Obviously, it's very difficult to go and defend a title. I'm not taking anything away from the guy in that sense, but you win 10 races, you destroy in all levels, in all areas, And I mean, I'm just going to go back here. 10 races, 20 top fives, 26 top tens, and 36 events. And he had an average finish of 9.1. So that is really, and 31 out of 36 races on the lead lap. That is insane. So it's asking a lot. I mean, Denny Hamlin's statistics were really close in top fives, top tens, and his average finish was actually better than him. But the victories are what really played the part. But this year, Larson, he's tied now with Clyde and Ross Chastain with the most top fives in the Cup Series. I guess I don't know. His average start, of course, is the best of anybody's, which probably helps. He has a 13.4 average finish, which is only third. So there you go. So somewhere along the line, I guess I'm not. It's probably me because I just don't care for the guy. But the MFer's been running good, and it just hasn't looked as prolific because he isn't winning every freaking week like he usually does. But in this case, he's second in points. Now the playoff points situation, he's going to gain. I think if he stays where he is, which he has a 20, or right now he has a 9-point lead on Ryan Blaney, which we're going to get into Ryan Blaney here in a moment. But Logano, he's got 21 points on, who's the next locked-in driver at the moment. If he can keep that gap, then there's a high likelihood he's going to gain, 10 bonus points, I believe is how it works, because you gain the top 10, get bonus points. Joe, our regular guest and friend Joe Passero, posts on his Twitter handle at Passero Jr. I retweeted it in regards to his playoff ranking or playoff setup, right, with the points, and it shows that as it stands, the regular season points, Kyle Larson would get 10. Blaney would get 8 if he were to get in as of current standings. Logano 7, and so on until 10th with Will Byron. But Larson is a factor because if he gets hot here, I mean, he's lost his crew chief this year, and other guys have lost their crew chief this year. But if he gets hot now, it could happen. And Elliott, who's dominated this season, his points, he's got so many more points than he's 134-point lead. So over the course of 20, what is it? You're talking of, I'm going to do this. He's averaging at least just over Kyle Larson. He's running 5 positions better than him across the entire season for every race. And it's going to get reduced down to 17, which is what the whole point of playoffs is. But I'm sure that doesn't make him any happier either. I think he felt a lot better about the circumstances when it was the likes of Ross Chastain, who supposedly has been involved in an incident for now 7 weeks in a row. He was part of what ended up sending his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, unintentionally sending his teammate Kimi Raikkonen out of the race. He was part of an incident with Chase Briscoe, probably something else because it's Ross.
Was he with Chase Briscoe though? Because
I think they both ran off. They both were running close, and they both.
I don't even know if they made contact.
They overcooked it in the inner loop, and they both spun out. So the fact is, he's proxy. So as long as he's anywhere near somebody with a vehicle, we're just going to blame Ross Chastain in this case. Not whether he does anything or not. Just say it's Ross Chastain's fault. It doesn't matter. If the watermelons start going bad in the country, it's Ross Chastain's fault too. It doesn't matter. Just blame Ross Chastain. That's what everybody in the NASCAR media does.
Yeah, exactly. Chastained.
Yeah, everyone's getting Chastain. That's the thing. Now, when you see, when you have become a word, like you're a verb. When you've become a verb, that is next level. Like Ernie Irvan, he didn't become a verb. He just had a nerve. They named him Swerve and Irvin. He's just Chastained is even bigger than Swerve and Irvin, which is essentially what he is. And what do you call Justin Marks is just leaning into it. He don't care. This is full WWE, and it is WWE with race cars. So that's what, like, Ross Chastain is like the Ric Flair. I know wrestling people, if there are wrestling people listening to the show, may get offended by that, but he's trying to do his best Ric Flair. And honestly, I want him to chair shot those Hendrick Motorsports guys. And then he'll probably let a Ford win, so it'll make me happy. But yeah, I mean, we went over those two guys, but I think the other piece, I mentioned it with the international drivers. Of course, Kimi Raikkonen finished 37th in the end. Tilly drives the 78 car and has issues every time he seems to run it. Danny Kvyat made another run for the Hedzenberg car team. Loris Hezemans ran. I picked him to finish last. Obviously, Kyle Tilley felt like he would finish last for him. Instead, we had Mike Rockenfeller, the former Le Mans winner. So all the European drivers, none of them finished better, or international drivers finished better than 30th, but it was big news. And of course, Kimi was the biggest news story and got tons of attention. I think it was a bad sell in regards to talking to Rocky, who's done so much in sports cars, and Kvyat, who is a Formula One driver and has finished on a podium in Formula One. Like, come on, like you at least talk to those guys, maybe, even though they have no real shot. They're not in good equipment. I get it, but the way the weekend was going, Raikkonen just kept on getting faster and faster, but then that's Kimi. That's just what he is. When he's motivated, it's amazing how good of a driver he was and is. And curious, he said something at the end that he might have hurt his wrist during that incident, whether it was because the wheel went around on him, or the way whoever hit him, Henzemans hit him, they're coming out of the inner loop, might have hurt his wrist. So who knows when he'll be back. It sounds like, well, they're not going to have the car the rest of this year. My inclination is it'll be at the Daytona 500, and it'll have Helio Castroneves in it, no matter what Justin Marks says. But I mean, Kimi, I guess that's the thought, Josh. We talk about what he did this past weekend, and I guess in general what it means that this next gen car has made it so that maybe we could have more international drivers show up and run in the sport, a sport that has been a part of our lives for so long. But to have people coming from across the pond and other countries being interested and have a chance, theoretically, to compete is something that I don't think we would have really thought about or thought would be possible. It hasn't really happened since the days of the great Dick Johnson driving in the late 80s, really, early 90s kind of deal.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think, with Kimi Raikkonen coming over here gives credibility to this series when it comes to being able to handle next gen car. Because I think if he had come here and ran last year's car, probably would have struggled a lot, and maybe not as much, but definitely would not have I think wowed as much people, and you would definitely have seen a lot more struggle there. But with the next gen car is it's designed more with the road course background in mind. Of course, I think it's kind of based off of the design of the Trans Am car, and you have the more GT car style design. So I think the adaptability when it comes to people who are from international, like Kimi Raikkonen, like Mike Rockenfeller or any other driver that's never raced in a stock car series before or has little to no experience in a heavy car like that, but has racing experience, whether it's in a open wheel car or a GT car. Can come over to NASCAR and potentially run in a race. Given the proper preparation, like Kimi Raikkonen did, with the simulator, doing pit stop practice with the team, doing private testing as they're allowed, because they said Raikkonen was allowed to do a private test with a different team just to get him seat time and get used to the car and everything. They said that on the broadcast, but I think when you consider all that, it makes it easier for drivers like that, and I think it opens the door potentially maybe for if a driver in a different series, say like in Formula One, we have a lot of drivers that are potentially they have a chance to get in there, but oftentimes they either fizzle out or the opportunity never comes, and they either go to IndyCar and run there, or potentially now they could eventually go to NASCAR instead and run here in the States. And given that the Cup Series is also beginning to be more road course centric with the amount of road courses that we had on the schedule this year, and most likely for next year, there's a chance that for a road course guy, they can come here and be competitive relatively quickly. So I think that's kind of the impact that this car brings, and what Kimi Raikkonen is able to do. And I think for Raikkonen and his team, with Justin Marks, I mean they had the idea, and they kind of spearheaded this idea of trying to get guys to come over here to bring appeal to NASCAR from worldwide and all of that. So that's it's a great idea. It's been so far looks like it's been executed pretty well. So we'll love to see what comes out of it next. And like we said, probably going to be Elio Castroneves, more than likely, from what people are saying, probably going to be the next guy at Daytona or something like that. So would be interested to see that. So of course, it's going to be interesting to watch in the future as more international drivers get into NASCAR. But I will say for Raikkonen, throughout the weekend, I was really interested, I guess, in how his pace was going to be, and overall in qualifying. I mean, he qualified 27th, but they were able to use strategy to get up into the top 10 and race up there. And he's racing against Chase Elliott, who's the champion from 2 years ago, and of course was the dominant driver of the day. So it says a lot about this car, and it says a lot about his driving talent, that he's able to adapt really quickly and potentially have a top 10 finish right there within reach, and something that wasn't totally unreasonable. So I think it's still a solid debut, even though it ended in a crash. And hopefully he decides in the future, decides to maybe come back and try this again next year. Potentially, maybe they can work out a deal to go to COTA, because of course he's won there at COTA in the past at the 2018 U.S. Grand Prix. So that seems like a natural fit for Kimi Raikkonen to go out and try in this car again, and maybe we see that happen next year.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking about when you were talking about with the road courses and the road course centric nature of Cup, the Chicago streets at July the 4th weekend. If you are a GT driver that isn't contracted by a factory, or if you are like Jordan Taylor, I know that Jordan Taylor wants to drive a NASCAR vehicle of some sort. Let's just say I think he's going to have a chance to have an opportunity next year at that particular race. If they're not racing somewhere else, that's the issue with IMSA, of course, and there's the calendar. But the notion of those kind of guys, Rocky is a good example of that. I think if you're a GT-centric driver, GT3, you've ran Le Mans, you've ran like the whatever GTLM class, now the GT3 centric cars, or you're a TA2 like Connor Mozak, who drove in the Xfinity race and was having a good run. young gun guy who I think has a future, might be making a future trying to get here to NASCAR. There are going to be a lot of guys getting calls. It kind of harkens back to the days of the Boris Seds and Ron Fellows, where they would be called in because they could do the job a little better than who was driving the car regularly, or they'd make a car so that they could team to go and have them out there, and they were able to do work more times than not, or at least give themselves an opportunity to, and then, whatever happens, happens. I think that's a nice thing to see. But I mean, we'll see what happens with the code. What do you call it? Broval. I don't know how many specialists will be out there. I would venture to say Henzemans or Kvyat may show up, and then the 77 might have a specialist, and then Joey Hand will run, of course, again. But it won't be as subscribed because, of course, it's a playoff and it's a cutoff race in the playoffs. So that's something we'll see. Now, last thing we'll talk about before we move on to IndyCars is the current playoff situation as it stands going into Daytona. So now Kurt Busch is also locked in to the playoff. Now, it may not mean anything if he doesn't race at Darlington in a couple weeks' time, but we're hoping he does. He won't be at Daytona this weekend. Right now, 15 drivers are locked into the playoff. Chase Elliott, of course, has locked up the regular season title. There is still some battles in regards to the people trying to get into the top 10. The top 10 in overall points would get bonus points. Now, of course, two of those people, and Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr., are in a battle to actually make the playoff. One of those guys is not going to make it. Ryan Blaney is third in points, has been in the top 5 in points virtually the entire year. Truex has basically been in the top 10 in points the entire year. The notion that two guys that have over 26 weeks actually performed on a generally more often than not week by week basis, since this format doesn't really ask you to do so. It may be the old school in me. Maybe the fact that I came in when you actually had to run well and when DNFs mattered and all that, because you lost so many points. And now this format is, you win a race and you could shit the bed the rest of the year and it doesn't matter. I mean, McDowell did that last year, ran over both Penske cars, wins one race, finished like 25th in points, made the playoff, and he was out of there in 3 races. Like, I mean, you're telling me he's more deserving than somebody who was in the top 10 in points. It didn't get that far because obviously there weren't that many drivers that won. It wasn't that big of it wasn't as extreme as what we have right now. But we're running into a situation, Josh, where, I mean, I say this as a Chase Briscoe fan, and I'm putting this out there. It's the same as 2011 when Tony Stewart said we're wasting a playoff spot. I don't care how many effing stages Chase Briscoe wins. They always win stage 1 of a road course and disappear the rest of the race. They've done that for 3 consecutive road course races. In none of those races have they actually had a finish of any value. He's a waste of a playoff spot. And Austin Cindric, God love him, he's going to win Rookie of the Year because there's virtually no chance. This could all change on Saturday. One of the 2 rookies could win, but they're not going to up. That isn't going to overtake the Daytona 500. But he's going to win Rookie of the Year. But he hasn't done enough to be in this playoff. And personally, you can go as far. I would go as far as Bowman, Suarez, Cindric, Briscoe, Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch is because of injury. I don't know if he would really be up there one way or the other. I don't think any of those guys really should be in the playoff. It doesn't add anything to the playoff. Why? Because none of them are going to be there after the round of 12 is done. So to me, why are they in there in the first place? Isn't the playoffs supposed to be? I get in all these sports are expanding playoffs and you have more teams and it's becoming more like participation trophies, and that's what NASCAR is all about, I guess. But the playoffs should actually be, it should feel like you're in there and you really have had to battle. I don't know how, like I was trying to figure out how to word it earlier. And if you win multiple races, even if you've had a shitty year in a lot of ways, which of course Denny Hamlin has, but he's still 14th in points. He's ahead of Cindric and he's ahead of Briscoe after basically not existing for like a month this season. Tyler Reddick is in that same mix as well. They're all in that same realm. Kyle Busch is just lucky Chase Briscoe ran over Tyler Reddick at Bristol, or else he'd be in play. My idea is what they used to have, like the 12 drive, like it was the 20. I think the first change they made to the playoff, I don't remember what year it was. I think it was 10 or 11.
They went to 12. They expanded to 12 in
12. Okay, so yeah,
2007, and that was in response to Dale Jr. and Jeff Gordon both missing the playoffs in 2005, and then Tony missing it in 2006.
Tony missing in 2006 and finishing 11th. That's exactly right. So good call on that, man. Thank you for that. That is what so it was the top 10 in points, and then the next two drivers who had the most points or wins or whatever, however it came up. If you were outside of the top 10 in points and you had won like 3 races, we'd let you get into the playoff. You're on the back end, you don't have as many points, but you're in. That was response to 2 of the biggest drivers in the sport in 2005, and then the defending series champion in 2006. And then Tony won, I think, 3 races in 2006 playoffs or something like that, and in response to that. So that, I think, was the best setup. You could still have your resets and your playoff points and whatever, 12 drivers. You have 36 cars locked in every single week based on these charters. A third of them making the playoff versus 16. It's only 4 cars, right? It's only 4 cars, but it means more. You put value on actually showing up and being either in the top 10 in points or winning enough races, which the vast majority of the top 10 have done. And then you would have the 2 drivers outside of the top 10 who would make the playoffs. So just based on, I'll just use Joe's rundown from earlier today. And I'm looking at it right now. The only people, so if you did the top 10, Byron has 2 wins. What I'm saying is if you have multiple wins, you'd be in. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 drivers would be in based on that. Then I would then go and say that Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex would be in. They'd either get in because of the points or they'd either get in because of being those extra 2 spots. That means all the 1 race winners would have an issue. There would only be 2 of those 1 race winners making it in based on my unscientific format, which leaves, Chris Bell and Kyle Busch would be the 2 guys. Then all those guys that I mentioned that don't really belong would all be in an issue. And essentially the playoff, it wouldn't even be about any of those other people. The all these other guys that they're talking about, all these the 15 drivers we'd have, it would be even more condensed and it would be even more pressure inside a smaller group because it's less people. there should be more pressure to make the playoff than. I mean, Corey LaJoy is the only guy that's knocked out of here, right? Yeah, Corey LaJoy and Cody Ware, who doesn't even run every week. Joey Hand, like if Joey Hand would probably beat Cody Ware if he was running every single week. That's how he's scored more points than David Reagan. But David Reagan's only run what 3 times this year. So I mean, it's insane. Like Corey LaJoy is 31st in points. God love him. He does a great podcast. He's great in media. He is a great mechanic, and I think he would be an amazing crew chief. That team is garbage, and he's not that good of a race car driver. God bless him. He wouldn't be in the playoffs. Based even on this format, he wouldn't even be in the playoffs because he'd be out because of points. How would they justify a guy that has won a race? That's another thing. All right, so I'll let you go here, Josh. But if he had won at Atlanta, let's just say he goes and wins at Atlanta instead of Clyde, and he's outside of the top 30 in points. He can't make the playoffs because he's outside of the top 30 in points. What are they going to do? They're going to give him a waiver? They've given waivers before. But how could you justify that? The guy has not done enough. He's 31st in points. There's 32 people literally that have run every race this year. He's 31st out of 32. God love Corey LaJoy. I respect him. I've seen him win live. That speaks to people who'll be like, holy shit, you saw Corey LaJoy win a race. The guy can drive a race car when he has something. I don't know if it's just him or whatever. I don't know. When he had the Rulo brothers stuff in ARCA, when ARCA was somewhat of a legitimate series, he was still good. But my God, to get eliminated to the point where he's good at Daytona, but he has no chance. Like, that is sad. You've ran all year. You are not even in. And there's 2 guys like fucking McDowell got a 100-point penalty or something. He got a death penalty, and so did Brad. Not both of them are ahead of him in points. I mean, like, what the fuck? I mean, you have Ty Dillon. I mean, he sucks. Todd Gilliland has a chance. He's on the bump at 30. Michael McDowell, yeah, he's 24th. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the logistics because they'd have. To me, the way I'm bringing it up in my mind, Josh, it sounds like a cluster for NASCAR. So it kind of makes sense because how are you going to justify having guys that haven't won a race, but people who are outside of the top 10 in points get in because they have multiple race wins? It emphasizes winning more in the regular season, but it also, my thing is, it puts winning in perspective in the regular season, but it also puts being competitive in the regular season in play. So it would guarantee, based on points, Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., so there would be more people that would be battling for 2 spots or whatever, because it would be for 2 spots, not one, number one. And it would be amongst anybody that has won a race this year, which I think in turn, if somebody, well, no, it would have to be somebody who already has won a race. So it would mean, like in my format, it would essentially take Bowman, Suarez, Cindric, and Briscoe. Eric Jones is actually in it, and Eric Almirola. So, okay. Those 2 guys actually, if they won a race and they scored enough points, could actually get into the top 16. That way, so they would actually have the points to get there. So I don't know. What were your thoughts on? I've been pontificating. I've been whatever, but that was my rough idea, and I think it sounds, in my mind, it sounds better than what the hell they have right now.
Yeah, but it makes for good TV. That's the problem, and they can sell because they're going to go into this weekend. And you have however many drivers that are eligible for the one last spot all the way through 30th place. You got Brad, who's basically been MIA since Daytona. Ricky Stenhouse, who shows up every now and then.
Oh, Richard.
Yep, that's right. And then Michael McDowell, who actually had a good run. I think if it kept raining at Watkins Glen, definitely would have been up there for the win. I think he had the best car in the rain. But then once it dried up, he didn't have as much pace as Elliott and Larson. But if he had won, that would have send everybody into scrambling for the 17th winner. It would have kicked out Ryan Blaney and put them in desperation to try and win. Because if Ryan Blaney wins next week, then of course he's in. Right now he's still in, but if he got kicked out and then won next week, then he'd be back in because he's higher in points than Michael McDowell is. But yeah, it's just a very complicated system that needs to be uncomplicated. They've fucked it and now they need to unfuck it. So to me they would like just make it the top 20. Like if they're gonna have this winner in system, that it should just be the top 20 in points rather than the top 30, because then there would be some legitimacy. Because there's no way that a guy in 25th in points should have a ranking over somebody that's third in points with no wins. Because if you get lucky at Talladega, or any other track, prior to Daytona, you get lucky at Daytona. Now that's the closing regular season race, but if you get lucky at any of these restrictor play tracks or fuel mileage win, and you're normally a 25th place points car, and that means you're somehow deserving of a championship over a guy who's been fairly consistent but just hasn't won a race all year, that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I think it definitely a 20th, or cut it off at 20th place, and then I think top 12 vie for the spot, which means that 8 drivers. See, that's a little bit more interesting, because you have 8 drivers who are somewhat mid-level to mediocre that could potentially still get in, and you don't have anybody below that's completely middling otherwise that doesn't deserve a chance. Because I think you look past 20th, we'll count Kurt Busch in this, because we'll give him a pass on the injury, but you could maybe make a case for somebody like Bubba Wallace making it into the playoffs if you cut it off at the top 20, which I think he's 20th in points right now, and that's still somewhat legitimate over Brad Keselowski or Ricky Stenhouse or something like that. So that's to me, that's what I would do. Of course, if it was really up to me, we'd go back to the old format before the playoffs and just have the regular season win, or be the whole year, and then just reformat the points to make it so that winning races rewards the most points, sort of like in Formula One type system or something like that there. But yeah, you have that, and then also the stages, which that contrives things and overcomplicates things, and of course affects the racing strategy in some way. We saw that at Watkins Glen on Sunday. Had a lot of great racing, in the first stage, and when it was wet, and it was pretty intriguing, pretty compelling. And then you had to throw the stage yellow because it's mandatory, and it's like, well, sometimes you wish they didn't have that yellow there. And it's just like when you have a yellow at any other track that's not a stage yellow, but you have good racing, and then someone crashes. It's like, wow, that just of course you get a restart and everything, which makes things artificially exciting. But then you also, on the other end, you had some really good, legitimate racing going on between drivers and everything. But it's all because of TV, and we're gonna have how many, like, dozen drivers that are outside the top 16 in points trying to make it in at Daytona, that maybe only 5 or 6 could make a case for. And then on top of that, when it comes to the elimination rounds, you're going to have the guys that are stuck at 12th or below trying to race their way in. They'll be racing for 15th and 15th spot, trying to get in, and trying to get in on points to make it into the next round. And it might be great. I mean, it might be great racing, like, visually, which no problem with. But then on the other hand, the whole reason why the drama is there is because of some artificial system. So there's that. And then of course you have the most successful driver of the year, of course, like we talked about. 2020 was Kevin Harvick, and somehow did not have a chance to compete for that title, when probably should have been the champion that year if you go by points scored over the regular season. And think that also, if that happens again, I think that also brings or makes the system lose a lot more credibility. I mean, at least last year, Kyle Larson, being the most successful driver that year, actually did win the title, so brings a little bit of credibility back there. But I think
It was
how it's
still a
set up.
one race go
Yeah,
off
still a one
anyway.
race go off. That's not really legitimate. So yeah, it's just I think going. Let's tie it back to the international thing. Um, I think this kind of undermines that because then if you try to get international fans to get into this, they're gonna have a hard time following it because there's gonna be a lot of things to follow and understand the format. And I've heard from other media outlets on YouTube saying that maybe NASCAR needs to reconsider this because it's ultimately making it overcomplicated, and that maybe with the way things are with the racing on the track with this new car, that maybe we can get rid of that and just have the racing and have everything fall behind that. So um, I think ultimately to outreach that maybe we have to modify this again or abolish it entirely to be able to grow beyond the current NASCAR fan base, I guess.
Yeah, if you're really trying to get new people in that are I guess a little higher level crowd. I mean, granted, where we're at with Formula 1 with a lot of Lewis fans and most of Verstappen's fan base. No offense to my buddy Tom Downey, but most of his fellow Max fans are pretty retarded. And I say that as somebody who works with people with disabilities, so it's bad, but whatever. And Lewis fans are an interesting sort as well. Um, and I say that as somebody who's been a fan of his since 2007. It's the same thing with Larson, Elliott, whatever, and Kyle Busch and some of those bases. The sport has moved. I get it. It's moved to a different place since BZF took it over. And a lot of what BZF did during his time has made this thing worse. You have an opportunity. You've made some changes that are good. This car is
He was on
good.
drugs too. I mean, this
Yeah.
guy's a admitted drug addict and
Yeah.
everything, and his decision making while on drugs potentially affected the entire sport.
They've lost a ton of money. I mean, the only thing that's really kept them afloat is Fox and ESPN, ABC, and frickin' NBC paying ridiculous amounts of money to go and put on commercials every 10 laps. That's part of it. Um, there's also the notion of I think with the way that the sport went with all these contrived gimmicks that they've had because they're so desperate for fans because they can't explain how to make a 500-mile race and how it is. The point is, it worked just fine when Bob, Benny, and Ned did it. It worked just fine when Mike Joy was working with Neil Bonnet, the late Neil Bonnet, God bless his soul, and late Buddy Baker, God bless his soul, and we're Bob Jenkins and Benny Parsons, all God bless all of them. You know, they had no problem explaining these races, and Ken Squire, they didn't have a problem explaining these races, and you know what? People watched, and generally speaking, the crowds were pretty darn good, and the racing wasn't horrible, and they didn't have to set artificial cautions, and they didn't have to do all these things and come up with playoff points and stage points, and God dang it, somebody would put a good car together and win the race. That's what's happened on a lot of these road courses this year. Clyde did it. He's done it a bunch before. That's why he's won a bunch of road courses. Tyler Reddick's done it the last two road courses. There's been days when that happens. That's what racing is. And we're about to get into a racing series that allows that to happen because that's what racing is about. Um, we'll talk about Cup. We'll talk about Daytona next week. Josh will be at the race. We'll have Joe Passero on. So get ready for a good long GSP in episode 131. We always seem to do that when the three of us are all together. So we'll have another long one leading you into your week, the week before Labor Day weekend, so that'll be nice. But another thing that we'll be talking about next weekend is IndyCar, because this past weekend's race was really, really good at Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway, which saw Josef Newgarden win for the 5th time in 2022. Newgarden has been on a heater this year. His teammate Will Power led the most laps. Then Josef Newgarden led the second most laps. So it was a Penske benefit. It's a track. I mean, it's hard to find a track that Penske isn't good at in an IndyCar, because it's Penske Series, it's IndyCar, et cetera, et cetera. But my goodness, he has quite a battle on his hands. Will Power, of course, tied the great Mario Andretti with 67 poles, led a bunch of laps, led the first 58 laps of the race, then led another 61 laps after pit stops. So essentially led his 128 laps over the first, whatever. Yeah. He led the vast majority of his race in the first 123 laps of the race, and then got a few more laps led there in the middle. Then Josef Newgarden appeared, and that's when things kind of changed. Newgarden wins over David Malukas and Scott McLaughlin. The battle at the end was between Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin, the teammates. Pato O'Ward finishes 4th. Former winner at Gateway, Takuma Sato, finishes 5th. So Dale Coyne's team gets 2 cars in the top 5. Sandwiching 3 Chevy cars, being sandwiched around a bunch of Chevy cars, all 3 Penske's, and then Pato's Arrow McLaren car. Then 3 cheap Ganassi cars, Marcus Ericsson, Scott Dixon, Alex Palou, and Greem Rehal rounding out the top 10. He was the last car on the lead lap. So, what is it? 3, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 10. 10 guys led in this race on Saturday night. They, unlike NASCAR, they moved the race start up to avoid rain. They got 210 laps in or thereabouts. They got 214 laps in, or 213 laps in before the rain came in. They had Air Titans at St. Louis, drive the track, got the race in. I guess IndyCar seems to have a better idea of what, and with the tight TV windows that NBC provides for IndyCar, they were able to get the full race in and do it in a reasonable time. But Josef Newgarden winning is now 3 points behind his teammate Will Power. Will Power's been the most consistent driver this year. He has the best average finish of 6.4. His qualifying, even with all the poles that he's had this year, he's Will is at 4 poles this year, but his average starts actually only 3rd, 4th, 6th. But he has 4 poles, so that's the most poles amongst everybody. He's ran at the finish of more races than any driver this year. He's tied, I'm sorry, there's 3 guys that have finished 15 races this year. He's one of them. Scott Dixon is another one, and then Connor Daly. So there's 3 guys that have finished 15 races out of 15. Those are those 3. He is 3 points out of his teammate. Scott Dixon's 14 points behind in 3rd. Marcus Ericsson, the Indianapolis 500 champion, is 4th, 17 points behind. Palou, the defending series champion, is 5th, 43 back. Scott McLaughlin, after another podium, his 6th of the year, is 6th in points and 54 back, and Pato Award is 7th, 58 back. Those are the guys that are still in this, really, and it's going to get to the point where essentially it'll be 4 guys if things kind of stay the way things are going into after Portland, going into Laguna Seca. But strong race at Gateway. Josef Newgarden trying to get 3 championships, and he's putting himself in a place to really do that, Josh. Getting one for his baby now he's a dad. I think he's got that dad energy going now. 5 wins. He wanted to win in Nashville, didn't go well. He was really pissed there, and now he was pissed because he's still not leading the points, but he's got Ryan Newman energy going on now. It's like circa 2003 when we won all those races and didn't matter, but the difference is I think Josef Newgarden might be able to close this deal out, even with Will Power's qualifying prowess.
Yeah, I think for Joe Newgarden, he's got 5 wins now, so he's needs to win again or finish better than Will Power at Portland and then Laguna Seca, and I think the title's his. But yeah, this was a interesting race that played out because first Will Power was very dominant during the daylight, of course, and then I think all the way up until the weather started acting up. I mean, this was basically Will Power's race, but then pit strategy deferred, and then Josef Newgarden basically found himself out in front with the last restart, and then he was able to hold off his teammate and Scott McLaughlin, and was able to hold them off there. It was a really great battle between those two with the last 40 laps. Scott McLaughlin was maybe within a second of him the whole way, and he's had to navigate traffic, and Scott McLaughlin was able to still keep up with him. But for Josef Newgarden, it's a dominant win, and furthers his case to be the champion this year. And it's very possible now with only being 3 points back in the title. And to go back to our point about NASCAR and the playoffs. I mean, look at IndyCar's playoffs or standings here. You have 4 drivers that are within 17 points, and tell me that's not exciting. They didn't need a
7
playoff.
within 58, no playoff, and that's been the case for. This has been going back. I don't know how far back you go with IndyCar, but I can remember whatever this series, even before they merged. There was the Dario Franchitti, Scott Dixon battle in 2007. So that's 15 years ago. It's almost like every year this is what it ends up being. And it organically happens. The points are kind of wonky in IndyCar, but honestly, it always presents this. There's double points at Indianapolis. That's why Ericsson's in it. After Dixon should have won. Could you imagine if Dixon had actually won the Indy 500? This may not even be a conversation. Like, that's the thing. It's crazy. Like, Will Power would always be that guy that would go and have his issues. This year, he's been more consistent than he's ever been in his whole entire life. Qualifying just as good as he's always done. He only has 1 win. He's doing the Dale Earnhardt, Matt Kenseth thing, and I that's my thing in my head with the old NASCAR point system, because Jeff Green posted a picture of his old Nesquik Chevrolet from his championship year on his Twitter, and I tweeted him and he liked my post, so it reminded me of that. That's essentially what Will Power's doing, because if he had that same mentality when he lost those championships to Dario, he'd have probably beaten Dario for one of them. He wouldn't have beaten him both of them times, but he would have beaten Dario at least once. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in.
You're thinking that. I agree with you there, and I think this had some good racing in it too, because we talk about Newgarden and McLaughlin. Newgarden made a very bold move, on the final restart and passed him on the outside. to take the lead for the eventual win. So there was a lot of great racing there, and McLaughlin had a chance towards the end, but just couldn't get through traffic as good as Newgarden. And then you also had to deal with David Malukas, who also had good tire strategy and was able to be in position thanks to his team. They had good tires, and they were able to use them to their benefit. And we may be talking about a different winner here if he had maybe ventured out onto the outside lane a few laps earlier once he got up to first got up to Scott McLaughlin there, because he didn't pass him on the outside until like maybe the last lap, I believe, or 2 laps to go for Malukas to overtake into second. But that was a pretty interesting aspect there, just between the tire strategy between the teams, and then also the strategy to go out in front, because I think the way that got set up was Newgarden and McLaughlin were on a different strategy, and Will Power, Pato O'Ward were on a different strategy. Then they kind of diverged, and then ended up with Power restarting mid-pack, or not mid-pack, but in like 4th place, and that gave the opportunity for Newgarden and McLaughlin to battle it out. But this was an exciting race, I think, for IndyCar. I think the interesting part of it was, of course, the weather, which I think they didn't have to end this race or stay as long as they did. I think they could have cut the race short. They decided to hang it out for the fans and for everybody else, and they wanted to settle the race and race the final 43 laps of that event. So give credit to IndyCar for figuring out how to get the race in, and give the fans what they came to see. So and even with the constraints of the TV window alongside of that, so give them credit for being able to get that all in, and give us the great racing that we saw there at Gateway.
Yeah, and Curtis Francois, everybody at Worldwide Technology Gateway Motorsports Park, there, credit to them for yet again providing a great experience. It's a bucket list track for me to go to, whether for the Cup Xfinity truck weekend, but more likely the IndyCar weekend, unless maybe they can move it off of Watkins Glen. But well, let's be fair, I'm not going to go to Watkins Glen NASCAR weekend. It's for the 6 hours. I'm going to make that happen next year. It has to happen. Because there's going to be all the new GTP cars. It's a justification just to go. Great weekend again. Great racetrack. One of the best racetracks, best run racetracks in this country. We almost lost that track. Good people that want to invest have done a great job, put on great racing. Now you have the 2 biggest series in America at this track, and you have 2 great events. And so that's the thing. And now 58.7 drivers, 2 races to go. We will preview Portland next week on the GSP. We went over all the Cup stuff. Failed to mention, we'll just reverse back before the roundup. There really isn't, to me, there really isn't a whole lot to go into. The race was essentially Will Byron and Ty Gibbs in the Xfinity, the Sunoco Go Rewards 200, which is only 8 laps shorter than the Cup race. But the Byron qualified on pole, Gibbs is in second. They dominated the race. They led, what is it? Led 60 of the 60 of the 82 laps, and it was really amongst those guys. Sammy Smith won his first stage of his Xfinity career. He should have probably won the ARCA race, got used up by Tanner Gray, or Tyler Gray, or whatever the hell the other Gray brother is. William William Byron won the second stage. Gibbs and Byron used each other up in the inner loop. It seems like the inner loop was where all the action was this weekend. A lot of the action was. Connor Rose, so Larson wins in the 88 car, Allmendinger second, Smith third, Gagson fourth. Kaz Gralla gets a top 5 for Big Machine Records or Big McKine Records if you are a Bubble Bluey person. Sam Mayer 6th, Riley Herb 7th, Sheldon Creed 8th, Josh Berry 9th, Jeremy Clements 10th in a nice looking throwback type scheme in his 51 car. Herbst is actually the best points person that hasn't won a race this year, so that's crazy to think considering how bad Riley Herbst has been in his career. Gralla gets his first top 5 in the Xfinity Series. Creed is essentially the only person that could flirt with making it in on points. He's only 39 points back. Custer, Stephen Parsons gets a good finish. Top 15, Sieg, who is in 12th, lost points to Sheldon Creed there. Timmy Hill started tailback, finished 14th. Connor Nozak had a bad pit stop late, but was still able to get back to 15th. Landon Castle, who is running for points, hasn't had a great year. Josh Balicki was making lots of cheese-related jokes on his Twitter. Andy Lally got a top 20, and of course Brad Perez, who I got his shirt from his debut last year in the ARCA series. Hope he'll make another shirt for his Xfinity debut on Saturday. I'll go and get that one because he did a good job to go and make the show and get a top 20 finish ahead of Preston Pardus, who's a pretty good road racer. So I mean, this race, we talked about it last week, Josh. We thought a Cup guy was going to win. We figured it was going to be one of them Hendrick guys. The fact that Larson won, essentially picking up the pieces, not really that surprising. And combining it in regards to the points battle that we have in the Xfinity Series, as it stands right now, as I mentioned, AJ Allmendinger has a 61-point lead on Ty Gibbs, and Justin Allgaier, who wrecked early, finished dead last, lost a ton of points. He wrecked 4 laps into the race, so lost a ton of points, and is now 70 points behind Gagson's 99 back. Josh Berry's 118 points out. So you just imagine how in the Cup Series right now, there's 118 points or thereabouts to Elliott and Larson. There's few people are ahead of him, but the fact of the matter is right now, AJ Allmendinger, that run he had on this weekend, what he did this weekend, might have been the thing that gives him a chance to win this regular season title, Josh. Since we're getting into, right now we have 4 more races counting this weekend at Daytona, this coming Friday at Daytona. 4 more races to go. He could start dumping points, honestly. He could finish 20th the next 3 weeks, or around 15th. If he can run 15th the next 4 weeks, he's still gonna win the regular season title. And that is huge for a guy who has only really shown his stuff on road courses in AJ Allmendinger so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very critical race for AJ Allmendinger to be able to finish solidly. Of course, he didn't win the Xfinity race, came up just short behind Kyle Larson on Saturday, but AJ was able to do what he needed to do to not give up the race and preserve his championship. run here. But on the flip side, going back to the main contenders in this race, you had William Byron, who, of course, running a one-off in Hendrick Motorsports, and Ty Gibbs also, doing double duty that weekend. But Ty Gibbs had a good car. William Byron also had a good car, but they got into it in the bus stop. Kyle Larson was there as well. Thought better of going 3 wide, going into the bus stop chicane, but then William Byron and Ty Gibbs both spin each other out, and that gives Kyle Larson the opportunity to go ahead and take the win. So Larson, of course, we talked about him earlier in the Cup Series. On Saturday, wins on the first day, so wins in the number 88, and gives Junior Motorsports another win on the season as a team. Goes to show the preparation that they give for their cars and everything. But the Xfinity Series point standings, of course, Ty Gibbs, of course, him getting spun out and losing the race did not help him in being able to make a charge for the regular season title, and hurts his chances on that front, although he's got plenty of wins already on the year compared to everybody else. So it's not a necessity to win, but of course it does help to win to get into that regular season title, give you a little bit more cushion than what you already have with playoff points and wins to go on the year. So those are those things to consider in the Xfinity Series. But this was I think the racing there was also exceptionally good, just like it was on Sunday for Xfinity at Watkins Glen. Did not I didn't expect William Byron to go out and dominate like he did on Sunday or on Saturday for Xfinity. I don't really normally think of him as a road course guy, but Hendrick Motorsports, obviously, they did a good job preparing their number 17 car that they've created a one-off for those guys to get their Cup guys more experience with the road courses on the schedule that we have left, so that they can continue to perform better in the Cup side, which obviously for Kyle Larson this helped him because he was able to go out and win on Sunday. But there's a lot of other guys in this series as well that performed exceptionally well. Sammy Smith, of course, finishing in third place, who he's kind of on the up and coming as well, and he was able to get out and get a good finish and led a handful of 6 laps in this race. So it was only his 4th start, and got his first career Xfinity top 10, top 5. So that's a good race for a young driver like that. Kaz Grala, of course, also finishing in 5th place. He had a good run for that team, for the Big Machine Records team. Sheldon Creed, of course, trying to get into the playoffs. Still not quite in it. Still got a long ways to go, but a good top 10 finish helps him to be able to get to the potentially get into the crack the top 12 there. But this race was a little bit interesting, maybe not as flashy as the Cup race with the rain and everything, but still there's a lot of solid action. You still got a unexpected finish, of course, with Byron and Ty Gibbs getting into it on after the final restart.
Yeah, and I think this weekend's Xfinity race, we're going to get into it, will be spicier. And then we have Bristol coming up. You have Darlington, which, to be fair, is a junior motorsports track. Darlington. Bristol is somewhat of a wild card. That's the cutoff for the regular season championship there. The regular season title will be determined at Bristol. So Daytona is a wild card. Bristol is a wild card of sorts on the concrete. And then Darlington is a junior motorsports track. The 1.5 mile track probably is more of a junior motorsports or a Ty Gibbs type of track. So that's what we're going to see, hopefully, as we get into the next 4 weeks of the Xfinity Series. There ain't going to be there will be they're running out the rest of the year now. They had their last off week, the Xfinity Series, so they're going to be running 12 weeks in a row. So they'll be with the Cup Series the rest of the year, running. So we'll see the Xfinity Series every week. Getting it around up here this weekend, had NHRA at Brainerd. The fuel categories, the nitro categories ran. Steve Torrance gets his first win of 22, the four-time defending champion of the Top Fuel Series. 52 wins now for Steve Torrance. He beats Tony Schumacher, the 8-time Top Fuel champion, so plenty of championships amongst those two assholes. That's lovely. And then Tony, Brittany Force had the OET of the meets at 364 the 6. Josh Hart 334.73. Best speed of the weekend. Brittany Force lost to Steve Torrance in a pedal fest in the semifinals. Tony Schumacher, even though Justin Ashley had a killer reaction time against him, Ashley smoked the tires. Schumacher ran a 4:33. Still had lane choice, didn't matter in the finals. The funny car highlights for them. Bob Tasca gets yet another win. He's on a heater right now, doing great work with his program, his Ford Mustang program. Ron Capps ran against him. He got really lucky. After the first round, Bobby Bodie had issues, mechanical issues, and then Cap smoked the tires. If Bodie doesn't have those mechanical issues, probably advances, which would have meant he would have made the finals since Alexis DeJoyer red lit like by a country mile. Tasca goes and gets yet another victory there. They don't have Pro Stock Motorcycle and Pro Mod, or Pro Stock Car and Pro Stock Motorcycle didn't run this past weekend. Tricky Ricky Smith wins in Pro Mod over Doug Winters, 579 with a just under 251 miles an hour, 250.92 in the Pro Mod category. There's a little bit of drama there with stuff that Tricky Ricky Smith, he's like 180 years old. He's still at it. God bless him. He used to run the STP Pontiac in the Pro Stocks. So. Gotta love Tricky Ricky. His son, Matt Smith, has won all them Pro Stock motorcycle titles, and they're all still around doing great work. So, going into the U.S. Nationals here in a couple weeks' time, 4 drivers are locked in to the playoff or countdown. Brittany Force has a 94-point lead on Mike Salinas, 130 on Steve Torrance, 136 on Justin Ashley. Those 4 are all locked in. Essentially, once some of these cars make qualifying runs, they will get locked in. They will, the way it works is if you go and run essentially 2 out of 3 qualifying runs at every race, and you show up every week, you will make the playoffs. So as it stands, there will be 12 cars that make it into the Top Fuel playoff. Josh Hart, Sean Langdon, Neil Pruitt, etc., Schumacher, Coletta, Antron Brown right now is in by 29 points over Clay Milliken, his buddy, and tied. And they're also tied with Austin Prock. So that's a little bit of a battle there, points-wise, in Top Fuel. In Funny Car, the top 9 are locked in to the countdown now. Robert Height is going to win the regular season. He's 250 points ahead of Matt Hagan. Ron Capps is 3rd, Tasca 4th. John Force fifth, J.R. Todd, Alexis DeJoria, Cruz Pendragon, and Tim Wilkerson. Those are the 9. Chad Green is 4 points ahead of Jim Campbell, and then he's 26 points in front of Blake Alexander. So that's where those guys, I think Campbell and Alexander would make it in to the playoff based on what I understand, since they've run every race. So that'll be something to look at Indianapolis. The top 4 are locked in Pro Stock. They didn't run this past weekend. Enders, Aaron Stanfield, Kyle Koretsky, Greg Anderson. You have Troy Coughlin Jr., who's on a recent run, won a couple races in a row. Dallas Glenn, Mason McGahey, Camry Caruso. The only driver that I think is not affiliated with either Elite or what do you call KB Racing. So that would be something. Hartford, Bo Butner. The points between Matt Hartford 9th to Derek Kramer, it's only 50 points, and they have points and a half at Indianapolis. You have Quadras that is only about 36 points behind that. And I think that's really where they'll probably break it down a little better there. The top 8 are locked in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Joey Gladstone leads by 64 points over Angel Sampay. Eddie Krawick is 3rd, Steve Johnson 4th, so Suzuki's are the top 4. Matt Smith is swapping between his Buell and his Suzuki. He's in 5th. Angie Smith is in 6th. Jerry Savoy 7th. Karen Stouffer 8th. So, was it 1, 2, 3, 4 former champions are locked in to the playoff here. Mark Ingwerson, Ryan Ayler is the cutoff right now. He's 7 points ahead of Jimmy Underdahl. After that, Chris Bostic is nearly 90 points back. And then Kelly Klontz is over 100. She's 109 points back. Gianna Salinas is 111 out. That's really where those are where the battle is in regards to that. For the NHRA, we'll get back into it a couple weeks' time. U.S. Nationals, and preview that for everybody here on the GSP. Let's go and do that right over there. Good. Austrian Grand Prix last weekend for MotoGP. They were Red Bull Ring, which saw Pecco Bagnaia win for a 3rd consecutive race over Fabio Quartararo. Ducatis, it's a Ducati track. They always say it's a Ducati track. 4 Ducatis in the top 5. Saw Bagnaia. Quartararo was the only non-Ducati in there. Miller, the 2 factory Ducatis there in the top on the podium. Luca Marini for Valentino Rossi's team 4th. Johan Zarco for Pramac finishes 5th. Alicia Spargo finishes 6th. El Plan was sitting in his garage stall, so that's interesting. Brad Binder, former winner at Red Bull Ring. Alex Rins, Marco Bezzecchi on the other Valentino Rossi team Ducati in 9th, and Jorge Martin and the other Pramac Ducati in 10th. Fabio Di Gianantonio 11th. Oliveira, Vinales, Alex Marquez, Dovizioso. First Honda finishes 15th. Pol Espargaro. So he'll be happy to get off of that bike for sure. Joanne Mir crashed out in the first lap. Renea Bastianini had to retire 6 laps in. Nakagami Darren Binder, Franco Morbidelli's nightmare season. Crashed with 3 laps to go there. So their next race will be in San Marino at Misano. I think that's Misano. Where or Marco Simoncelli, whatever the track. I think that's the Marco Simoncelli track. Quartararo is up by 32 points over Alex Espargaro. Pecco Bagnaia with another victory. He's won 3 races in a row. The last, just have to scroll and unaggressively scroll. Yeah, can't really do that. The last 5 point scores he's had or 6 point scores are victories. Yeah, that's what it is. 5. Yeah, last 5 times he has scored points, but he's had 3 non-points scores in between that. So 3 in the last 8 races. So he's won 5 of the last 8 races, 3 non-point scores, and he started the year really, really poorly with an 8th, 2 5ths, and a 15th. So that's really why he's behind. That's a big reason why he's behind Fabio Quartararo. Quartararo's only had 1 non-point score this year, and when he doesn't, he's won, 3 times. He finishes on the podium. He's uber consistent, even though the Yamaha is not a great bike. He has done really good work with it. When it comes to the points, I mean, you have 1 Aprilia there, and then after the Aprilia Espargaro, you have 4 Ducatis, KTM, Alex Rins on the Suzuki, a Ducati, Miguel Oliveira with Jorge Martin and Oliveira on a KTM, and then Vinales, Aprilia, Mir on a Suzuki, having a rough year this year, former world champion, moving to Honda. Both Suzuki riders are moving to Honda. Joan Mir moving to Repsol Honda, and then Alex Rins moving to the Honda satellite team with with LCR Honda. He'll be moving with LCR Honda next year. So that's interesting how that whole dynamic is. Oh man. There's you're talking about the next best Yamaha rider after Fabio Quartararo's Franco Morbidelli, who is 19th in points. He only has 26 points on the year, and he hasn't scored a point in. He scores points at the back end of the grid. He's essentially where the Hondas are, which is crazy. So it tells you how this bike essentially is like good enough for one rider and not good for anybody else. A crazy thing to see. Ducati, of course, leads the Constructors or Teams Championship over Aprilia. Then Yamaha and Pramac. Constructors, Ducati's going to win. That's no argument there. Everybody in the mother knows that's going to happen. Moto 2 standings from last race. The Moto 2 race saw Ayagura win over Somkat Chantra, Jake Dixon in third. Acosta and Augusto Fernandez, your top 5. Cameron Bobier 13th, Joe Roberts 14th, so they both score points, so that's cool. Celestino Vietti retires. Lorenzo Della Porta, Tony Arbolino. Lorenzo Della Porta, Tony Arbolino getting a wreck with each other. Sean Dillon Kelly in a wreck with Kenneth Kubo 5 laps into the race. So brutal for him. The points going into San Marino, Ayagura has taken the points lead over Augusto Fernandez by 1 point. Celestino Vietti is in third. He's run into a rough patch here recently. Augusto Fernandez had 3 wins in a row before his 5th place this past weekend. Ayagura second, 4th, and 1st in the last 3 races has helped him there. Joe Roberts is now 5th in points, but tied with Tony Arbolino and Jake Dixon. So that's good to see, but he's 29 points behind Aaron Canet. Somkat Chantra is now 9th. Cameron Bobier is 17th in points, a point behind Manuel Gonzalez. Essentially, I mean, if you're looking at trying to get in the top 10, he's 45 points behind Pedro Acosta in that battle. And then Sean Dillon Kelly is still 29th in points. The Supercars at Sandown race last week there in what used to be the Sandown 500. You got Michael Massey who's going to be moving over there, so God bless Supercars who fuck that shit up and give it to Holden. Race 1 saw Will Davison win over Shane Van Gisbergen and Davison's DJR teammate Anton De Pasquale in 3rd. Will Brown, Cam Waters, your top 5. Race 2, SVG over Chaz Mostert, Will Brown, David Reynolds, Scott Pye. Race 3, SVG over Will Davison, Brock Feeney, Van Gisbergen's teammate, finishes 3rd. Chaz Mostert, Mark Winterbottom, your top 5. So the next race is a few weeks away at Pukekohe. The points see Shane Van Gisbergen up by, was it 228 points ahead of Anton De Pasquale. He's 252 points ahead of Will Davison. That's the battle. There's only X amount of rounds to go. Bathurst, if one of the DJR cars can win Bathurst, that could go and change things up a little bit. We'll see what happens with that. Three races, well, not 3 total races, but 3 rounds are left. Pukekohe, Bathurst, and then the finale, which will be at Adelaide, first time in a few years. So Adelaide is back on the Supercars calendar, so that's huge. Cam Waters, Chaz Mostert, top 5 in Supercars points. Going into the F2 series, you have Felipe Drogovic has a 21-point lead on Teo Pocher, who's had a great couple of races prior to the summer break. 45 total points in Paul Ricard and at Hungary. He has now brought the gap back to 21. Logan Sargent was on a heater prior to France and Hungary. He was scoring points in bunches and gotten past Teo Pocher. But the last 2 weekends have only netted him 4 points, which is horrendous. He's still 3rd, though. Enzo Fittipaldi is 80 points out of the lead in 4th. Jehan Daruvula is fifth, but that's a pretty tight battle, essentially from Enzo Fittipaldi all the way to Yuri Vips is only 15 points. So there's a lot of room there with the current format. There's still 8 total races to go this season. They're going to run the 3 consecutive weekends, European weekends, and then they'll be holding up to Abu Dhabi for the end of the season. So this time is huge for them. Formula 3 is also back this weekend at Belgium. They'll be running. There's this next 3 race weekends they'll run. That's the end of their season. So 6 races to go in their championship. Isaac Hadjar is tied with Victor Martins for the points lead. Artur Leclerc is 9 points back. American Jack Crawford, Red Bull junior driver, is 24 points out in fourth, along with Oliver Bierman. Roman Stanek, 35 points back in sixth. So you look at the amount of points you can get in a race weekend, and you have the sprint race and you have the feature race. There's some opportunities there. You got Kush Miney, he's 12th in points. Juan Manuel Correa, 13th. Kalen Frederick, 14th. Amongst those American drivers and Kush Miney Indian drivers. And Brad Benavides, Hunter Yaney, he's another one. So we'll see what happens this weekend. 3 weekends to go. They're going to be racing back to back to back. So F2, F3, it's going to come up quick. And after this European triple, their season's going to be over. So they're going to have some downtime. If you go and come through, if you get hot here at the end of the season, it could really net some great results and could get you into Formula 2 if you have the right funding, honestly. IMSA GT at VIR this coming weekend. There'll be just GT Pro, GTD Pro, and GTD category. We'll be racing second time this year that's been the case. Lime Rock was the other one. 5 cars in GTD Pro. Corvette of Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor, Matt Campbell, Matthew Jaminet, Pfaff Motorsports, Plaid Porsche, Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnicoat, and Vassar Sullivan Lexus, Ross Gunn, Alex Ribeiro, Sparta Racing, Aston Martin, and then Connor DeFilippi, John Edwards, BMW M Team ALL, as the great lead, if you would say. And then 13 entries in the GT Daytona category. New Jersey's Paul Miller Racing starts the race on Sunday. They will win the Sprint Cup. Brian Sellers, Madison Snow get that, so that'll be cool. That'll be great for them. They're a good team. Great combination. Madison Snow had to, quote, retire, end quote, for a year so he could maintain his silver ranking, telling you how the whole ranking medal system is. I think they're going to make some changes to make it a little different, so we'll see what happens with that. Frankie Montecalvo, Aaron Telitz, and Vassar Sullivan Lexus, Ryan Hardwick, Jan Halen, the Wright Motorsports Porsche, Roman DeAngelis, Maxime Martin, Harder Racing, Aston Martin, Mike Skeen, Stephen McAleer, Team Korthoff, Mercedes, Ron McGuinness, Jeff Westphal, Carbon with Peregrine Racing Lamborghini, Jaden Conwright, Marco Holzer, NTSSR Lamborghini, and you get Gas Monkey Garage on their team, so that's nice. John Potter, Andy Lally, Magnus Racing, Aston, after racing in the Cup Series. Andy Riley back to his regular job. Ryan Eversley and Aiden Reed and Rick Rowe Racing, Nurtec, Acura, Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, Windward Racing, Mercedes, Cooper McNeil, Jules Gagnon, WeatherTech Racing, Mercedes, Robbie Foley, Bill Auberlin, Turner Motorsports, BMW, and then Rob Ferriol, Catherine Lake, Team Hardpoint, Porsche 911, rounding out the grid. 18 cars for the race on Sunday at VIR. There will also be racing within the you got those things. So they're talking about FAF Motorsports, 5 straight podium results. Windward would be able to string the back-to-back GTT wins if they had an issue at Lime Rock Park. So Windward Racing's on the heater. Consecutive podium finishes, Lime Rock Road America. They had issues, of course, at Watkins Glen got destroyed by LMP3s, which is why they're a little bit behind in the point standings. So there is that going into this race this coming weekend at Virginia International Raceway, one of the best racetracks on planet Earth. We will preview Formula One. It's been a while, Josh. They've been off for their summer break, but Formula One's coming in fast and furious here for the rest of the season. 9 rounds to go. To be honest, we know that Max Verstappen is going to win the World Championship, more than likely, and it's the constructors is also determined, at least for the win for the top team. But Spa is one of the greatest circuits on Earth. There's a lot of rain in the forecast, kind of like Daytona. Zandvoort and Monza's the next 3 races. They'll have a break, then they're going to run 3 more races, another break, then they'll run 2 races, a break, and then so 3 break, 3 break, 2 break, and 2. So this series is going to be coming fast and furious as during the football season, no less. So this season 3-3, yeah, break and then 2 and then break and then 3-3, yeah. So I mean, are we going to see anything other than Max Verstappen winning this weekend? I don't think we are, personally. But what are you seeing for the Belgian Grand Prix? You won this race after they ran this race last year. They ran 3 laps last year due to the weather conditions, and they called it a race. And essentially, it was everybody held their positions. So Max Verstappen won the Belgian Grand Prix over George Russell, and I don't remember who finished third, honestly, because the race was so...
It wasn't even a race.
It wasn't a race, so... But do you see, like, as long as they run this one out, or do you really see anybody other than Max Verstappen in this race? I mean, personally, I don't see one, but I picked something different on the Grid Talk, but I did it just for entertainment purposes. It's Max Verstappen, in my opinion, but what is yours?
Yeah, I mean, I think Max Verstappen more than likely probably win this race. It's hard to argue against it. I have to see what Ferrari has left on the table coming out of the break. I think they have the best chance of the the rest of the field to try and beat Red Bull and beat Verstappen, but right now Verstappen's got the hot hand. He's been quick all year. They've had the pace. For the most part, strategy has been good. All left there is to do is for the driver to not make any mistakes, and right now Verstappen hasn't made any mistakes, and when he I guess has made a mistake, like in Hungary, he spun out and came back to win the race. So it's a tough deal right now for anybody else besides him, and really anybody else outside of Red Bull. But very curious to see if Ferrari can bring something here. If they don't actually mess up on the strategy, that would be interesting. We'll have to see. And then also let's talk about Mercedes. They've had a lot of improvement since the beginning of the year. They've been able to get Lewis Hamilton a little bit better form. Where he's been getting podiums. He's had that run where he's gotten podiums lately. And George Russell's right there alongside him. And of course, George Russell's coming up on the first place where he got a podium in Formula One, driving last year for Williams, albeit was in the rain. But we, celebrate that fact, I guess. And can George Russell come out here and maybe he can get another podium and actually get one for real this time? Although he's already had several ones that he's gotten for real so far this year. But hey, come back to the spot where you got first one and get a podium there. That would be interesting to see as well. And then I think the rest of the field, be curious to see what Alpine does. Of course, a lot of turmoil there between them, McLaren, and who else? Where's Fernando Alonso going? I forgot already.
Aston Martin.
So a lot of turnover between those three teams, but I think we'll see how they perform. They've been kind of one of the, I guess, better teams of the midfield, and I think they might have something to show for, I guess, being the best of the midfield teams. Like to see what AlphaTauri does between Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda. I think Gasly's been pretty solid so far this year, this season, but Yuki Tsunoda hasn't really been very much of anything. So a little bit divergence between the two teammates, but I think Gasly has been pretty solid and will continue to be. But it's been a while since we've seen Formula One, so I think you're outside of Verstappen. I think in that stuff, you're kind of going in with the fresh slate. I think everybody is really. So be interested to see what happens. Of course, they have made some changes to the track, the runoffs on Eau Rouge and Radion. So I think that might be a little bit of an interesting dynamic. Maybe not, but it could be something to watch for, I guess. But overall, looking for flat out racing with this new car this year. We've seen a race here so far, and there have been a lot of interesting things that have come out of it. But Spa is a very very flat out high speed circuit. Especially you going through Eau Rouge and then going through down the long straight there. So it's going to be an interesting Grand Prix to watch from that perspective. And we'll see, can Red Bull continue to power through on the high speed sections, and then the more technical parts of Spa, can they master that, or will Ferrari figure out how to fill in the gap and close the deal, and get a podium or potentially even steal victory?
Yeah, you brought up Eau Rouge and Radion, those big changes that they made to the runoff after all the massive accidents and deaths that have happened here recently, unfortunately. They're also preparing for MotoGP to come there, so they had to make those runoffs. They used to run at Spa, and they used to run at plenty of places where Formula One ran with runoffs the way they were. Which tells you how crazy those guys were. They were racing those bikes in the 80s and the early 90s, almost 500. But,
go back to the 60s when the original Spa circuit.
Yeah, and Jackie Stewart almost ate it over there, coming out of Eau Rouge. So, it's insane to think what racing was, and the fact that we have the likes of Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt here still is a kind of a miracle and all that. So, yeah, Max wins, but if Ferrari can get out of their own way, they're better on one-lap pace generally than Red Bull. What is Sergio Perez bringing to the table? He had a couple of bad races at the end of the first part of the season. Has he checked out, or is he going to come back in? That's a big deal in regards to what it means. I mean, it doesn't mean anything because they're going to win the Constructors, whatever, but does he want to finish second in points and make it look good, or does he not care? That's something we have to look at. Mercedes is what I'm looking at. Spa is in between kind of track in terms of roughness. You have to have low downforce. Is that going to bring up all the porpoising issues again, or have they fixed those? Are they able to have the pace? Because they have not had top-end pace all year. Lewis is a 4-time winner of this race, should be 5-time winner of this race. And frankly, you know, he's just trying to get one pole and one win to continue his streak for his whole entire career. That's essentially what he's running for at this point, and then preparing for next year. George Russell's building. This is, as Josh mentioned, the place where he scored his first front row start, first podium of his career, coming off his first pole last race. Momentum is there. He's been posting on Instagram. He's feeling loose. He's feeling great about the world. So there is that with him. Vettel starts the last 9 races of his legendary Formula One career. Finished 5th last year in this race. We'll be lucky to get anywhere near that this coming weekend and over the next 9 weekends that he's running. But he's a great driver. He's a great man. That midfield battle between Alpine and McLaren is something to look at. What is Ricciardo bringing to the table? He doesn't know where he's driving. You know, they don't. So both Alpine and McLaren theoretically don't have a second driver at the moment. So there are things in play there. Aston Martin, of course, has 2 drivers next year. I mean, 1.5, because for as big of a dick as Alonso is, he's still a driver, versus who he's going to be running with. And then when it comes to Haas, I picked Mick Schumacher to qualify and finish top 6 on the Grid Talk because it's a track that just suits him, I think, and it's just the Schumacher thing, the whole aura, like your orange, your aura. I'm going full Charlie Murphy. Your dad, when your dad is one of the greatest people that's ever done this, and he debuted there in a Jordan, qualified in the top 7. If it wasn't for a gearbox, he probably would have gotten points. Won the next year for his first Formula One Grand Prix win. I remember Michael Schumacher's second Grand Prix win because I watched that on TV, and I was celebrating it. I think that might have been the only time I ever celebrated a Michael Schumacher victory in my life. But we'll see what Haas has to show for this weekend. AlphaTauri has been terrible this year. We'll see what they can bring to the table. They've been god-awful. I think Gasly, a reset would be good for him, so I think he'll come back with a little bit more energy. Sonoda is typical, like Kamui Kobayashi, Takuma Sato, the like. And then after that, I mean, Alpha, Sauber, they're good on these type of tracks. The Ferrari power unit, it's kind of like Haas. If the Ferrari power unit holds up, it could be good. They have to take engine penalties, may affect their strategy a little bit, but maybe it's a time to take those engine penalties so you don't have them at Zandvoort next week and then for Monza the following week. Then after that, I mean, for Vettel, hopefully he can get something out of it. For Alex Albon, he can get something out of these next few weeks. as well. But we will talk about it next week on the podcast. I was going through the results. I mean, essentially, Hamilton, Vettel, best drivers there amongst active drivers. I mean, Albon actually has the best average finish, but that's going to drop a bunch now after this weekend. But Valtteri Bottas is third best average amongst current active drivers. So interesting, and Gasly is fifth. So. Interesting to see Vettel's won there 3 times, Hamilton 4 times, Ricciardo in his first year for Red Bull won there, and Verstappen's 3-lap victory last year. What a joke. I think Leclerc won his first career race there at Spa in 2019.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, that was his first career win there. So it would be a very timely victory if he could go and get one. I mean, he's 80 points behind. He won back-to-back races at Spa and Monza. If he could go to Max Verstappen, if he could go and run off 3 straight victories, that might actually make it a little more interesting, but it really doesn't matter in terms of the Drivers' Championship. That's the way to hold off Mercedes. Go out there, get out of your own way, stop stepping on yourselves, go and win 3 straight races with a car that can compete. But I don't think Max is going to let that happen. Okay, so now we get to Cup Xfinity at Daytona. So we'll start with Xfinity. It's more interesting. 43 cars for 38 spots. What's it called? Yeah. And on the trucks. Why am I on the trucks? Yeah. 43. So yeah, 5 cars will miss the show. So you have to consider. So I guess, Josh, do we consider everybody in this, or are we kind of taking into account people that are likely to go and miss the show here before we consider the algorithm?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question there, and I mean the way I've got it set up right now, I think I do have it set up for everybody. So that's
so you have all 43. All right.
Everybody.
So all right. So I have to bring up owner points. That's interesting. Owner points going into this weekend. So following. So you the top 30. I think top 34. Get in on speed. I think top 34 get in on speed, or 32. It's one of those. And usually the battle comes after, like amongst the teams, like the 08 car. I don't know, was the 08 car is run by David Starr this weekend, so that's usually where the interesting stuff happens. The 38 car, which this weekend's being driven by Kyle Sieg, that's 25th in points. So essentially I'm saying the top 24 in owners points, which 24th is was it Jeb Burton in 27. You have the 31 with Myatt Snyder. Before that's Jeremy Clements, the 36 car. And then the other SS Greenlight car, which has a victory this year, so he'll be locked in anyway, along with the 48 car, the big machine car, which has a victory, so they're locked in. So the top 24 essentially are locked into the race. The real battle starts at 25th with the 38, the 91, the 08. So Alpha Prime, both Alpha Prime cars, Sage Karam is running, and then Cesar Baccarella, who is the Alpha Prime and Alpha Prime. He's going to run at Daytona, so they need to run good on speed. They're usually good for that. Getting into other points after that, the 4 car for JD Motorsports and the 6 car for JD Motorsports. So both JD Motorsports cars, but we just to bring it up, Ryan Vargas had a good run in February there in qualifying. Bailey Curry also did all right, and he has Alka-Seltzer sponsorship this coming weekend, so hopefully both of those guys can make the show. The 6 car missed the show last week, unfortunately. Spencer Pumpelly at Watkins Glen. The 78 for BJ McLeod is in there, and let's see the 78 is with Matt Mills. So Matt Mills has to qualify on speed. Jesse Awuji, his car is dead last amongst all the cars, or no, he's next to last amongst all the cars that have tried to make an attempt every race, but they've made shows, so they actually have points, unlike Mike Harmon's 47, and Jesse Awuji, of course, is running this week, so there's a good chance that Jesse Awuji is going to miss the show, which will be fine.
Yeah, he should not be on a restrictor plate track.
He shouldn't be on any track.
Well, yeah, but I mean, especially on a super speedway.
Yeah, and then neither should CJ McLaughlin in the 28 car. He's another one. Getting into the field itself, Josh Williams is back with DGM after a failed experiment at BJ McLeod's team. Matt Mills is in the 78. Timmy Hill is going to be running a Chevy for MBM with Hendrick engines, so they're going to probably make the show on speed. Ronnie Bassett has to make it in on time. Mason Massey, the 91, is another one that they don't have the points, or they're 26th in points. They're right in that mix, as I mentioned earlier. And JJ Ailey, the MBM number 66, is there in that mix as well. They're going to also have a Hendrick Chevy package for this weekend. The Alpha Prime team, they're going Chevy this weekend. The rumors were they're going to go and combine. They were going to make a deal with Stuart Haas and go to Ford, but I guess that didn't happen. Joey Gase will be in the 35 this weekend, and that team is in that mix as well, points-wise. So I think the qualifying, if they actually run qualifying, if it doesn't get affected by weather, is as intriguing, if not more intriguing, than the race itself, because there's some interesting players there. Sam Hunt is going to have the Nemecheks running together if they can get them both in the show. John Hunter's guaranteed in with the 26, but his dad, the 1992 Busch Series champion Joe Nemechek, multiple winner at Daytona in the Xfinity Series, will be running a second car for them, and they're going to have Eric Phillips as their crew chief, so it'll be a shame if they miss the show. Multiple winner in Xfinity Series at Daytona and Talladega, Justin Haley. He needs qualifying to happen, or else he's not going to make the show. Kaulig has 4 cars. He's the 4th car there. And then, Sammy Smith's going to run the 18 car this coming weekend. Joe Graff is back for whatever reason. Natalie Decker is in the 5 car. So she's in that mix as well for making the race on speed. So I don't know where the owners' points work. So after all of that, what are you looking at in regards to your picks? Who do you look as your winner, your wild card, and what does the algorithm spit out? The Tate Fogelman algorithm spit out for the Xfinity Series. What the hell is this race being called?
It's the Wawa 250. Yeah, good sponsor.
The Wawa 250.
I like Wawa.
I live at Wawa. I told the guy at the Wawa in Peaburg that if I had my uniform, it'd be like Wawa, Coles, Miller Lite. Well, now it's like seltzer, so I have to figure out what hard seltzer sponsor I want. But yeah, Miller Lite, Wawa, and like Coles. That would be my sponsorship package for my situation, based on, and probably like Columbia 300 and 900 Global for bowling. That would be my sponsorship package if I was racing. I wish I would have PBA Tour sponsorship back in the day, like Terry Cook did in the Truck Series. So let us know what you're thinking in regards to the Wawa 250. Get a Sizzly on Saturday. If there was a Wawa up by you, go and get a Sizzly and get a coffee.
Oh yeah, I mean, side note on the Wawa, I mean, yeah, Wawa didn't start showing up in Florida until like 2012, 2013. So once they started showing up, like, it's game over. Yeah, they're pretty good, but I can try to get a hoagie or something like that maybe this week. But as far as this race goes, I mean, this is there's a lot of players in this field, because when you exclude who's likely not to make it in, but I mean, look at the top half of the field, and Junior Motorsports, Colleague Racing. Colleague's got 4 cars this week, which is gonna have a little bit of extra wrinkle. We know how they like to work the draft and how they race when it comes down to the final laps. And then you got Junior Motorsports, who's kind of starting to figure it out, but they still got that old school plate racing mentality of trying to race for themselves, like what Junior kind of did back in the day. This is going to be really interesting, and the dynamic between these two teams, how they're going to work together with each other. And then you've got the Gibbs team, Ty Gibbs and Brandon Jones, and Sammy Smith also racing again this week, so that might be interesting from the Toyota aspect of it. But yeah, the Xfinity racing, there's gonna be a lot of push drafting on the straights, and they gonna have to back off in the corners. But I'm very curious to see how it plays out, because it does play out a lot differently than the racing in the Cup Series does. But as for me, I'm gonna go with AJ Allmendinger winning this weekend in Daytona for Xfinity. Like I said, I think Colleague, they figured it out. They have the past couple of years. Last year the finish didn't go the way that they wanted it to, but or maybe a couple of years ago, I might be misremembering this, but they always work together pretty well. So yeah, I'll go with AJ Allmendinger winning the race, and then as a wild card, that's tough, but and can't count out Richard Childress Racing, by the way. They run pretty well at Daytona as well. As a wild card, we'll go with I'm gonna go with John Hunter Nemechek as a wild card. It's a little bit out there, but I think with Toyota Alliance, as long as they make it into the field, they might be up there towards the end. He's, I don't know how well of he's not as well as a super speedway racer as he is maybe in the Truck Series, but he might be able to figure out a way to be up there in the top 10 by the end of the day. And that brings us to the algorithm pick, the world famous Tate Fogelman algorithm picker, as you called it. And I went and ran this while you were doing the roundup and everything for both Xfinity and Cup, and it picks number 48, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. racing this weekend here for Big Machine Racing. So good old O. Richard going out and winning the race. That's what the algorithm says.
Posted it in our page, O. Richard in the 48. That's how I posted it. And the Tate Fogelman algorithm equals O. Richard in 48. He is a super speedway specialist. It all started in the first Gen 5 Xfinity race when they went to these cars. When they changed to this body style after he almost got fired in 2008. That's when his career changed, and he had a big weekend at Daytona, and that's why he still has a job now in the Cup Series. So AJ Allmendinger does the winner. He's never won a super speedway race in the Xfinity Series somehow. John Hunter Nemechek as Josh's wild card, and the algorithm for Josh. Put that as a star. And Richard. Richard is the algorithm. I was going through the results from earlier this year. There were two Junior Motorsports cars. AJ Allmendinger finished second, and Austin Hill won. Sheldon Creed finished sixth. So two RCR cars, two Junior Motorsports cars, and one Colleague racing car in the top 10. And then Keebler finished 11th. The 26 car was in the race with Ryan Truex, starting tailback, and he finished 12th. So that car has speed, so they're a Gibbs-supported car. For me, I guess it could work out as a wild card too. I'm gonna go and pick. I'm gonna pick Daniel Hemrick. It has nothing to do with his performance so far this year, because there hasn't been a whole hell of a lot to show for it. He's going to have extra time in the Cup car. One of his last two races he's going to get to run this year in the Cup Series is this weekend, as long as they have practice. So Daniel Hemrick won the pole, won both stages in February. And as to start his defense of the Xfinity Series Championship, and as this season has gone on, his opportunities have probably dwindled. I think he'll probably have a job next year at college anyway, but it has not gone well for him and for his wife for Kenzie and for Ren and all of them, and for their new baby that's coming along. But I'm saying the pain finally ends. Hemrick gets a victory, locks himself into the playoffs here. Colleague gets the job done. The wild card for me, I'm going to pick somebody that I figure can make the show. Somebody else can make the show. And I'm going to pick Jeb Burton. Yeah, I'm just picking guys that have done nothing. Jeb has won a super speedway race before in his career, and I remember it was about 8 years ago when he was a Truck Series regular for Turner Motorsports, and I think he finished third in points that year, thereabouts, one of those years. I think he won a super speedway race in that. I think he won Daytona, but I might be wrong. But his daddy has won the Daytona 500 somehow. He's run well at super speedways in his career. That team, Our Motorsports, is basically built to run good at super speedways. Him and I could have picked Anthony Alfredo, who's one of the only people that has a chance of possibly back into the playoffs. I don't have an algorithm, so I'm just making this pick and I'm just pulling it out of my ass. um, my Philip Matthew pull it out of my ass pick is Ryan Vargas, just because I like him and he likes chicken nuggets, but they're not going to do anything.
The super wild card pick there.
I'll tell you what, if the pull it out of my ass pick wins, if Ryan Vargas wins, I'm probably going to have a stroke, so there won't be any Richard podcast next week. God bless him, and God bless Johnny Davis Motorsports. But if they win, I'll tell you, that would be something. His odds have to be like 1,000 yards pulling it out of his ass exactly. That is exactly right. The Cup race at Daytona, I'll start so we can build up the suspense for the algorithm and everything. So the smallest field at in a race at Daytona in I don't know how many years. I read that earlier. It's a 37 car field at Daytona. The changes this week, we'll see Reagan in the 15. Hemrick will be in the 16, as I mentioned. Scrolling through. Gibbs, of course, will be in the 45. Gagson will be running the Beard Motorsports 62 with help from the Gaughan family in South Point Casino. Landon Castle will be running double duty, running the 77. So the same sponsorship that are running on the 16 and 77 will run on the 10 and 11 in the Xfinity Series. Blowjob McLeod looking at losing his charter. If somebody bids enough money for it, probably needs a big run in this spot. It probably won't matter. He's back in the 78. So who am I picking? Am I going to go and pick somebody that's already won a race? Am I going to pick somebody who hasn't won a race? It would be more interesting to pick somebody. Like it would be on brand if I go and just pick Christopher Buescher or I pick Bradley Keselowski, because Bradley Keselowski has won this race before, and as Josh mentioned earlier, at Daytona this past February, both of them won the duels. The Roush cars won the duels at Daytona in February. Brad wasn't all that great in the race. Buescher, I don't really remember what he did. But I'll just go and pick YRB. He'll close it out. He'll win 2 races in a row at Daytona. And he'll lock himself in. And it won't be a question of points. He'll just win. And he'll get the relief that he actually makes the playoffs. When he's third in points and Martin Truex gets relegated, he's essentially getting relegated. It's like being in European football or, outside of this country when, that's what has to happen to, the Jets or certain teams that exist in our realm, in our major sports, like the Knicks have to be relegated, the Jets have to be relegated. That's what's going to end up happening to Martin Truex here on Saturday night. He's going to finish 17th in points. And he's going to wonder, he's going to think he's back at Furniture Row in 2014 when he thought his career and life were over. But my wild card for Saturday night is Bubba. It's not a wild card, but it is because he's right on the cusp.
I mean, it's the best wild card that you could come up with.
Yeah, and if he wins, the amount of people that are going to kill themselves or die probably is selective enforcement, is probably natural selection. If Bubba Wallace wins on Saturday night, oh man, I'm here for it. I'll tell you. not just because it would cause conniptions and lots of people to have to go to the hospital, but because for Toyota and for their brand, they'd get 5 out of 6, 83% of their cars into the playoff. Truex would be the guy that falls out anyway, and Blaney. So Bubba would knock out his BFF.
Yeah, and a corporate teammate.
Yeah, and a corporate teammate. And Bubba would that's likely to be his best man, too. That's a whole other thing, since he's getting married at the end of the year. Him and Amanda are getting married at the end of this year. So he's going to knock out his possible best man out of it in his wedding, and one of his groomsmen too. So that there's a whole lot. Just for that alone. So yeah, I'll go YRB, Blaney, and Bubba. So kind of favoritism going there. And then the pull it out of your ass pick, I can't pull Corey because he has no chance. The pull it out of your ass pick that actually has a chance to make the playoff because they're inside of the top 30 is Justin Haley. The dude's done it before. He did it in a Aspire car. And, you know, he's in a better car now. So why not? I mean, Colleague has been on the cusp all year. With AJ, the irony is if AJ was running for Cup points this whole year, he'd be in the top 20 in points. He's been that good. Hemrick, more or less for the races he ran, was pretty good too. But definitely AJ, if he was running for points this year, would be in a position he would have probably won a race, in my opinion. So Justin Haley was a super speedway specialist going and winning a race. So for Phil,
yeah, you said I was about to type it out. You had
Blaney, all right, go ahead.
You had
Blaney to win. Blaney to win. My wild card is Darrell Wallace.
No, hold on. It's William Darrell Wallace.
William Darrell Wallace Jr. Ryan Blaney. And then Justin JJ. You should just put it in for our sake. He should be JJ Haley, because that's where he came into this sport. He was JJ Haley before he became Justin Haley. But then they figured out he'd be like, oh, they think you were JJ Yaley, and he's not that good of a stock car driver. But yeah, those are my picks. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, for me, well, I mean, you picked it. I was gonna pick Blaney there, to be honest, because you had it. Or I've got the Team Penske shirt on, and I was gonna pick Blaney to go and take the last spot, but you already did that, so we'll go a different direction there. Yeah, it's a really interesting deal here, but I'm gonna go with I'll this is a pull it out of your ass, but it makes sense. I'll go with Brad Keselowski here, because he had a good car in February. He had probably the best car on speed here at Daytona. So I think it's a good chance he could get in and cause a little bit of controversy, knock out his former teammate in Ryan Blaney, knock out another junior protege in Martin Truex Jr. out of the playoffs. So it's all right there. For me, a wild card in this event, Coke 0400 entry list. wild card, I'll go with Michael McDowell because he won the Daytona 500 already in 2021, and he's a really good restrictor plate super speedway racer. So why not? Let's go with that. So two drivers out of the realm here, but at least one of them makes a lot of sense because he's got credibility and he's been a Daytona winner before, and well, both of them are, but one did it legitimately, and Brad had a good car back in Daytona 500 back in February, and now for the long awaited Grip Strip podcast, Tate Fogelman algorithm machine pick, and it says Noah Gragson in the 62 wins the race. I see your face right there. You can't believe it. You can't believe it. I'm dead right now.
Wow, you made me dry heave and make faces, and you can just make a bunch of memes now. So now, here's the thing. I'm doing a Pablo Torre thing because you and Pablo Torre are kind of like in the same realm, Asian, half Asian, whatever. So here's the thing. With all the memes that you can make with this, you're gonna have to run them through me. Because I almost threw up on my new microphone, and I was going through all the fields, like, oh God, he picked Gagson. And then I'm like, well, it's Wendy's. So I'm like, it's not so bad. But they're not Wendy's this week. It's freaking South Point. Fuck South Point. But I'm like, I want to go there because I'm a Brendan Gaughan fan.
It fits. It's a lottery pick.
Yeah, but you're expecting Noah Gragson to actually make it to the end, which, I mean, he won't do drugs when he's driving a cup car. He probably would when he's in his regular car, but holy mother of God. That, you need to post this, since you're the video guy. You're going to have to post this whole entire reaction, whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to have to clip this, yeah.
We're going to have to clip this. We're going to have to clip a thing for NBC Sports and Map 360. But we're going to have to clip the reaction to the guy that's going to resurrect Richard Petty Motorsports GMS in the realm of inbred LCD dipshits and people who drink whatever the hell.
Oh, White Claws? Yeah, that's your sponsor right there, White Claw. You were just talking about it. You need a hard seltzer. Yeah, go with you got your boy Noah Gragson drinking White Claws. You can get sponsored by them.
No, I'll do the Dos Equis ranch water instead, or Trues, just so I don't have to ever have anything to do with that fucking tool. My God.
Oh man.
All right, you can keep going.
That was pretty good. I got you there. Thank you. Well, I had to say thank you to Google Docs this week for that one.
Thank you, Tate Fogelman.
Yeah. Because my Microsoft Excel account was through my school, and my school account has expired, and I had to do this through Google Docs, through Google Sheets. So I hope that didn't change anything, but hey, that's how it works. That's what it gives us.
You're high society. You can afford a Microsoft
I'm still trying to
account.
freeload it on. Yeah, I admit that. Yeah, but I haven't used it at home. I don't really use Microsoft
so now
at
you're
home.
admitting you're Asian because you're a freeloader. So it's going to the whole Russell Peters thing. We're going into our Asian roots now. Because it's the same jokes that I was making with Wilson, and we're about to transition.
Yeah, we're about to
fantasy
haggle.
Football. So I was making the jokes about how Wilson and Vic have all their forms and sheets and all that, and Wilson had to go and specify the fact that he was at the kids' not his kids, but like a kid's birthday party, and he was using Yahoo ADP. He wanted to say that he wasn't using his usual setup to draft, but yes, this is so if people didn't understand that the GSP has an Asian flair, let's tell you this.
It's right in front of you.
Yeah, I'm Asian too, South, and so is Josh. He's North, but is part Asian. But then we also can enunciate, so that's where the Jeff Gordon thing comes in. And we're NASCAR fans, we're motorsports fans, we're very educated. Josh is better educated than I am, and that's what it is. I really don't know how I'm supposed to keep on going with this, with that fucking algorithm picking Noah Gragson. At least pick Cody Ware. Like, I could deal with Cody Ware. Like, Cody Ware deals, like, I have similar shit with Cody Ware, but his dad's rich. I mean, I don't have money, but it's like, fucking Gagson, of all people. Oh, man, why couldn't Brendan Gaughan drive that car? I wish it would have been Brendan Gaughan. I love Brendan Gaughan. But no, it has to be this fucking drugged out.
We should just change the name of it to just pick drivers that Phil hates.
No, because the fact is the algorithm usually is good. But because it's usually interesting. This time it's fucking you picked Cesar Baccarella in February.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's true.
You picked Cesar Baccarella. I'm like, all right, good. He's gonna wreck anyways. But he owns a team, so it's like, fuck it. But oh god, this asshole's gonna put it in the fence like 30 laps in. He's gonna be in the infield doing lines and drinking whatever the hell, the hogwash moonshine, and probably getting fucked in the ass. And that's the algorithm. We've made a pick. This is supposed to be a serious thing. The Tate Fogelman algorithm. And now it's connected to Noah Gragson. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to the fantasy football fall brawl situation here, and that Yankees won. Yes, because Aaron Judge got a 2-run shot, so that's part of it. My team is renamed to Freeland's Analytics, which is a double entendre. For you educated people, I think you can figure it out. She has a huge schnozzle, so there's like a triple entendre there. Because Kay Adams has disappeared, that's why. Or else I would have left my team name for Kay Adams, Froyo. I was able to draft Austin Eckler at the number 4 pick. I might have been able to go with a wide receiver there. I decided to go with my usual, with my feel and my setup. I got Austin Eckler. I was able to get Stephon Diggs, who's with Buffalo. And I've also got Michael Pittman. My running backs after Eckler are Javonte Williams, Antonio Gibson, which is kind of iffy. I got Michael Thomas, but he just hurt his hamstring, so I'm starting to be worried about it. My quarterbacks are Joey Burrow, who isn't playing yet, and who knows, but I think he'll play when it matters, and Trevor Lawrence, so that made Josh mad. I picked Cole Kmet, which was a joke I had between my friends, my BFFs, Vic and Wilson. That I put up the tight end position because those assholes wanted the tight end back. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna freaking fanboy out for Cole Kmet. So I did it exactly for that reason. So I'm hoping Cole Kmet's the reason I get the belt back. I say get the belt back, even though the belt is still in my possession along with the ring. That's essentially my starters right now, at least for week 1 as of now. I have some other people that are not exactly the most stable. Davis Mills is my third quarterback. We have a 2-quarterback league with a super flex, so that's what I have. My IDPs, Fred Warner, who is just part of the top. He's part of 20 to 100 in the top 100. I have Daniil Hunter and Antoine Winfield for my IDPs. So we will see what happens. I had a little buyer's remorse with some of my picks later in the draft. My draft grade was B-, so whatever the hell that's worth. But Josh, you did pretty good. You got a B, and you're going against Vic for week 1, and you did pretty solid, man. You did your thing. You went solid. You went strong. You have Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, and Deebo Samuel. So that, or if you ask certain people on NFL Network, Deebo Samuel is his government. And Deebo Samuels is what some of the people call him in the media, which tells you that they need to go to school or they failed out of school. But you have a solid team as you always do. Let us know what you're thinking about your team and lead into the your segment as well, your sim segment.
Yeah, of course. With this team, I think for me, it's pretty solid overall. Deebo Samuel, Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Darren Waller, I think, is also a good, solid tight end. Seems to produce well when he's needed. Tyreek Hill is a little iffy because Tua is not really that great of a quarterback, and I don't think trading for a star wide receiver like Tyreek Hill is really going to change that. Despite all the offseason hype from that team and everything, and
their new head coach,
Mike McDaniel's a good guy.
Yeah,
he's a good guy, but I don't know if it's enough to overcome deficiencies of Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL. But I do have a little bit of, for me, I got a little bit of buyer's remorse because Derek Carr, Mac Jones, not really the best QB setup considering other people have mobile QBs as their starters. People with Vic got Dak Prescott and Tom Brady. That's a lethal combination right there because.
Well, that was something I was going to say about how the quarterback run started. That was kind of stupid compared to what other drafts would be, but I think it's mainly based on how my scoring is with 6 for quarterback touchdowns instead of 4. The points, like we have special point settings for quarterbacks as well with bonuses that kind of drove that, but I wasn't really happy about that. The tight ends also went in a weird way as well, but yeah, definitely the quarterbacks went way too quick, and then Vic, he went Dak Prescott and whatever, and then he picked Trey, which fucked me and Wilson up, and I think it fucked everybody up because I think everybody in the league that was focused was trying to get Trey Lance. Let's get if people want to. I know people don't listen to this show yet for fantasy content. It's not my personal fandom. The fact of the matter is, if you want 2 quarterbacks that are not in the first tier, your 12-team or 10-team league tier that are going to come through, you're looking at the fans right here. I got it right here. I'm pointing at Josh, pointing at myself. Pick Trevor Lawrence. Pick Trey Lance. If you want to win your fantasy leagues in a 1-quarterback league, and you want to get crazy, if you want to be in a 2-quarterback league, that's how you win. You pick the guy that's done work, should have won a Heisman Trophy, just like Peyton Manning, so he's going to have that Peyton Manning league thing. And now he has a coach. And they have an offense, and they have a running game and all that. They have a good offensive line. Not as good as they need to, but they're getting there. You need that. And the guy's elite. Elite. And you need a guy that is an athlete, that's a freak of nature, that's really smart. There you go.
Yeah,
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's a solid pick there, but yeah, I had Trey Lance on my draft board actually. I had him there, and I was considering it for a couple of rounds before he went, and I was like, I don't know, because like, you know, one hand he's, you know, got a lot of potential, but then on the other hand, it's a rookie quarterback. I know rookies tend to struggle in the NFL their first year, and you know, there's going to be a lot of potential for turnovers and things like that. You know, even, you know, it's all preseason, but you know that things happen like that in the regular season. But you know, we'll see what happens there. So ended up, I actually was the last team to pick a quarterback, and that's when I went and got Derek Carr, and then last round I got Mac Jones. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, my strategy was going 2 running backs, because I felt like that's what you needed. But I guess I forgot to consider the scoring system, and I probably should have just gone quarterback the second round instead of double.
I think the end of the day, your strategy is better because you got two beasts and you have both 49er wide receivers. So the fact is, you have leverage amongst myself and Luke because we're both 49er fans. So essentially, you could offer later in the year Ayuk or Samuel, depending on what it is. You're probably not going to move Samuel because he's going to do the jet sweeps and all that. But Ayuk, like your team, I'm looking at your team right now, and I'm like, fuck, if your quarterbacks, if Derek Carr shows out for Josh McDaniels, you only have two quarterbacks. That's kind of an issue, but
yeah, we'll
you
deal with
have
it later in the year.
Yeah, you can deal with it on the buys and all that, but you have Buddha and Myles Garrett, who are beasts, both of them, and you know your boy Foye, so you know he's going to be able to produce. So your team is set. Like your grade was just below. What's his name? I'm trying to remember. Bringing up the thing, but yeah, Steve, who's Vic's buddy who just joined the league. But honestly, the quarterbacks, I think the quarterback look is kind of the deviation. It looks weird because of how the flow went in the draft. But if Derek Carr does what he wants to do with his boy, since he got Devontae Adams there, and he still has, what the hell's his name? What's the other guy? The guy from Clemson. Hunter Renfrow. I was looking at video of a certain guy. His name is Hunter Renfrow. Pretty good looking guy, man. I can't do John Gruden. I need to be able to do a John Gruden. I wish I could. I'm doing, and that's based on the Frank Caliendo, but they have those two guys. You have Darren Waller, so you did the combination. Your team's looking good, man. You have a good shot. I was having buyer's remorse in my team, but as the alcohol sinks in and I think about it, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. We have time. And this league is competitive enough. I think there's going to be a lot of swinging and trading going on. So might be able to go and get some people that I kind of wanted or thought I could get in the draft. And same for you. And who knows? Making the playoffs in this league is going to be tough. And I know you're in other leagues, and I don't know when you're drafting. I don't know when I'm drafting for my other league. I know my keeper league is only drafting like the end of this month. So a lot of time to go between now and then. Still time for injuries and all that to play with.
Yeah, so we'll see how it plays out. I mean, yeah, I think you're right about the QB thing. I mean, it's nice to have all the flashy QBs and everything, but then at the same time, yeah, I got leverage because I have solid players all around. So and plus, QBs always get production. You can swap them in and out as needed. So you can get away with that. Of course, there's always going to be those crazy games, but um, you know, I'll be able to work with it. So I'm not too concerned. We'll just have to be very uh, in tune with the rest of the league in our league as well. So yeah, we'll see how it goes and then everything. So yeah, we'll move on to the sim segment here and just talk about what I did in iRacing last week. Yeah, mostly for me it was Watkins Glen at iRacing last week. Mostly yeah, just did the Cup car at Watkins Glen. Yeah, it was really interesting. The Cup car, driving the Cup car at Watkins Glen with this new next gen car. Um, Really have to make sure you hit your braking points at the right time, because there's a lot of times where I locked it up and overran the corner going to turn one and went off track. Way past the curbs, off corner exit in turn one. You know, um, Off into all into the runoff there. That was an issue. The last turn before the turn 7 coming, or turn 6 coming to that left-hander, can be a bit of a trouble spot as well. The bus stop wasn't really as bad, but it was all about maximizing your speed, as that's the fastest part of the racetrack there. So it was really just about mastering the braking points and finding the places where to shift and downshift and upshift throughout the track there. So yeah, it was there was some struggles there, but was able to go through it and have a bit of fun racing on that. Yeah, I did stream a couple of the races I did, mostly as kind of I guess a test, trying to test the audio and try to improve the sound so you can hear the game on top of my voice or alongside, so it doesn't sound so muted, I guess. So yeah, that's what I was trying to do on there. I think I also did some Miatas as well at Summit Point Raceway and then at Olton Park Raceway. So did a little bit of that. That was pretty fun. I always like racing the Miatas. Yeah, I think that's always a fun series to race in. It's very forgiving car, and you can really put it to the limit and get away with a lot of stuff that maybe you wouldn't be able to get away with in a upper level classes or whatever. But it's all about having fun in that series. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did in iRacing this week. Gaming, the other games, did download the new Madden, so it's all about football right now with fantasy, real life football. Getting new gear from the Jags, or well, Jags fans that create good gear, and of course, when downloaded the new Madden, which they changed up the mechanics of the passing part of the game for the quarterback. You have choices between the classic style where you just press the buttons to pass, or now they have a bit more of a timing and precision and power element to the passing, so you can try to make it a little bit more realistic. So that's a little bit interesting. I trying to master that right now, but I have a little bit of trouble because it's not something I'm used to, and it seems like you're kind of working way too hard to throw the ball. But try to figure it out, see if I can play it that way. If not, go back to the old way, which I feel like is a little bit more uh, intuitive. But we'll figure it out and everything there. So yeah, probably be doing outside of the actual race this weekend, which hopefully we'll go to and everything. Try to get on iRacing later this week and Madden, and maybe I'll stream a little bit Madden if I feel good enough about it. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, so yeah, that closes the sim segment, the gaming segment of this podcast, and yeah, we'll move on to the close. And yeah, of course, you can follow me on Twitch for my streams, Twitch TV/usailor2, and you can go on there, follow me, and see all my stuff, see the latest streams, see the any clips that I've got, go on there and follow my videos. Then of course myself, follow me at JB Huffline on Twitter. See what I'm interested in. All my Jags takes, all my racing takes, and any other things I'm interested in. You can look at that on there and engage in my content and see if you have anything that you learn from me or for my opinions or anything I share. You can go on there and look at that. And then of course the YouTube page, Gripshire Podcast. Go on there, follow our YouTube channel, subscribe, like our videos. If you watch them, comment on them. Of course, this watch our reactions to picking Noah Gragson with the algorithm. Obviously very very good content there. So that was you can go on there once we upload that to YouTube and watch that. So yeah, of course, as always, Phil, it's always great to have this show with you, and be glad for the opportunity to do it. So I'll turn it over to you to finish out the rest of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to go and do the show, and it's a passion project that we've been able to have as friends, and something that came up just as talking on the Facebook page, and now we've been able to go and do this and talk about all different types of motorsports. So it's fun here on the Gripshire Podcast, at Gripshire Pod on Twitter, at JPL Fine for Josh, and myself, I'm at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. We are essentially anywhere you can find podcasts. We have the Gripshire Podcast YouTube page, as Josh mentioned earlier, and we also are at philipgmatthew.com, my blog page. The show posts there. We will be back for episode 131 next week, going over everything that happened this week in motorsports. We have NASCAR Cup ends their regular season at Daytona, Xfinity, the Belgian Grand Prix. Rain issues are going on for both NASCAR and F1. We'll have IMSA at VIR, Formula 2 and 43 at Spa. We'll also be able to preview IndyCar at Portland, and then the Bristol night race weekend triple header for all three major NASCAR series, and then ARCA is also will be running there, and we'll also go over anything else that's going on next week on the Gripshire Podcast, episode 131. We'll have Joe Passero on. We thank you for listening to Gripshire Podcast. Go and like, subscribe. There will also be a sub-episode coming out through the Gripshire Podcast realm with myself and Tom Downey from Everything F1, going and doing an uncensored review of essentially teams 4 through 10 in the Constructors Championship so far in 2022, and getting into Ferrari a little bit. And that will also lead into another episode after the European triple that we have here over the next 3 weeks. We have at least another person that wants to go and do it during the day, since they're available, since it's a little later in their time, and I have time off since I'm on Mondays, and I just decided I want to go and do 2 podcasts in a day because I'm off. So we will stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the other one. Thanks for listening to Gripshire Podcast. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.